I said you better watch what you're doing, 'cause I ain't gonna stop when I'm moving. I'm headed to the top, I'ma do it. I'm headed to the top, I'ma prove it. And I could go all night, I'm sick of being nothing. All right, I'm gonna be something. I'll fight with every breath, trust me. I'ma be the one at the top, you can't touch me. I bleed with every word coming. I would rather die than be someone who's nothing. I'm the type of dude who will not remain nameless. I'm the type of dude who is headed for greatness. I'm the type of dude who could really make changes, 'cause I'm the type of dude that's becoming contagious. I'm the type of dude that will always be ageless. I'm the type of dude that will always feel shameless. I'm the type of dude that they say is fucking heinous, 'cause I'm the type of dude that you know is fucking dangerous.
You are absolutely right. The way he went about it was absolutely wrong. Like, so, like I said, I'm not
of my Jewish hatred that actually goes. Other than the fact that why are y'all popping out of the sewers in New York City?
Annunciation Catholic Church. You couldn't call it pronounced Catholic Church?
Yeah, pronounce the Catholic.
No, don't call 911. Sit back. No! No, Mommy's on fire. Bitch, if you don't go. Wow, what the fuck is you doing? I'm getting a fire. I never saw a fire like that before.
That right there, ladies and gentlemen. Horrifying scene emerging from Charlotte, North Carolina last night, where teens blocked off an entire highway for street racing, lit a fire under a bridge, and set off fireworks. The children can be heard screaming, "What the hell is happening to Charlotte?" That is a good question. That was actually posted on April 27th. Yeah. So that did happen last night. But, ladies and gentlemen, I feel kind of bad today. A little bit queasy, kind of upset stomach, a little bit nauseous. So we're just going to do a hearing. I was going to have some other things planned tonight, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it through it for that. But I just have to wait till tomorrow if I can get over this. But let's go ahead and hit this up real quick. Let's get this going. This is on 1.5 speed, of course, but this is what is this? Artificial Intelligence and American Power, Leadership, Security, and Prosperity. Let's see how this turns out today.
Hey, when we're from Missouri, you gabble hard. Good morning. I want to welcome everyone to this roundtable on the American AI leadership, hosted by the Subcommittee on Economic Growth, Energy Policy, and Regulatory Affairs, and the Subcommittee on Military and Foreign Affairs. I would like to express my thanks to our panel of guests who came in today, many of which traveled a long ways to be here, to discuss this extremely important issue. Today, in this informal discussion, we will focus on global AI competition, especially how America can and must win this defining economic and national security competition of the 21st century. I encourage our expert roundtable guests to engage in conversation with our members, who should feel free to ask questions and chime in at any time. Before I came to Congress, I spent years working as a software engineer and a technology professional. I've seen firsthand how quickly technology can reshape industries, economies, and our lives. Artificial intelligence is accelerating, and the nations that integrate and master it first will have a significant economic and military advantage. Whichever country dominates this competition stands to decide in large part the tech and the AI rules the rest of the world must follow for generations to come. China is not hiding its ambition. In 2017, the Chinese Communist Party released its National AI Development Plan with a stated goal of becoming the world's primary AI innovation center by 2030. Chinese AI models are being embedded into global infrastructure, often through open source diffusion, into telecommunication networks, financial systems, and into the governments of developing nations who may not fully understand what they are being invited into. Every gap in American AI leadership is a vulnerability that our adversaries are eager to exploit. Some economists project AI could add tens of trillions of dollars to global GDP over the next decade. It's not only industries that will be transformed, whether in manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, or defense. It is also the lives, safety, and the output of American workers and American small businesses. If the United States does not lead in AI development and deployment, we will be importing the technologies on terms set by others, and that is not acceptable. Fortunately, we have a president who understands this moment. On his very first day back in office, President Trump issued an executive order revoking excessive regulatory constraints on AI development set by President Joe Biden. That was the right call.
Yeah,
Government-mandated red tape and free speech constraints do not make AI safer.
I'm not feeling good,
They just
dude.
make American companies slower, while our adversaries sprint ahead unchecked. The Trump administration followed that initial action by launching the Stargate Initiative, a joint public-private effort to accelerate the construction of AI infrastructure in the United States. That means intensifying the building of data centers, power generation, and AI computing capacity on American soil, with American workers, creating American jobs. The administration is also clearing the way for trusted allies to access American AI technology and incorporate their technologies into the American AI export stack, a key advantage that we must sustain over our adversaries. Today, we will hear from our slate of experts and discuss how America can secure a future in which our country retains the lead in AI, our people and businesses to unlock their full potential, and we secure American economic prosperity for generations to come. I believe deeply in American ingenuity and innovation, but American AI dominance won't happen automatically. It requires leaders who are willing to fight for American competitiveness rather than regulate it into mediocrity. It requires leaders who want our businesses, workers, and communities to all benefit from the growth of AI. And I look forward to discussing this and more with our experts here today. And now I'm pleased to introduce our notable guests.
Hell no, they ain't working
First, we
like
have
they should.
Dr. Robert Atkinson. Dr. Atkinson is the president of the Information Technology
It's
and
not gonna
Innovation
make me
Foundation
feel better
and
now.
has been described as one of the 3 most important thinkers about innovation, a tech titan, and one of the top 25 doers, dreamers, and drivers of information technology. Next, we have Mr. Bark Beal, the president of Government Affairs at the AI Policy Framework. Mr. Beal served as the inaugural Pentagon AI Policy Director at the DoD Joint AI Center, co-authored a seminal report on frontier AI risks for the State Department, and provides regular commentary on AI policies for news outlets. Next, we have Mr. Charles Crane. Mr. Crane serves as a managing vice president of policy for the National Association of Manufacturers. Mr. Crane previously worked for the Biotechnology Innovation Organization on financial services, tax, and healthcare issues. He began his career on Capitol Hill working for members of the House Financial Services and the Senate Finance Committee. Next, we have Mr. Kevin Zinger. Mr. Zinger is the founder and
Kinda
executive
feel
chairman
like
of Divergent
booting up a
Technologies,
game while I'm
an
listening,
advanced
but
manufacturing startup that created the world's
I-
first end-to-end
I ain't
digital
doing
manufacturing platform, enabling rapid design, additive manufacturing, and automated assembly. Headquartered in Torrance, California, Divergent is reshaping the future of defense, aerospace, and automotive production. And next,
Oh, Jonah, I know you don't care, but on that Windrose game, I got I took over an island, and I started like smoothing everything out, and I have a tavern built on it now. It's gonna be a badass place for us. But yeah, I know you don't give a shit. I just wanted to say it.
we have Mr. Jamie Hindeman. Mr. Hindeman serves as Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of John Deere and is responsible for building Deere's tech stack, the company's intuitive end-to-end equipment solution made up of hardware and devices, embedded software, connectivity, data platforms, and applications. Next, we have Dr. Chris Mattman. Dr. Mattman has served as the Chief Data and AI Officer for the University of California, Los Angeles. This is the first of its kind position in the University of California system.
You just got Windrose today. You need to play it sometime. I mean, you're in the Discord. I can throw you our little server information. We're about to make it a dedicated server as soon as we can, so that way anybody can pop on and do whatever they need to at whatever time. But yeah, it's pretty fun. It's hard as hell, but it's pretty fun. It's a very open world. You got a lot of time to fuck around and do a lot of things. It's not like constant, but the combat is very difficult. It's like a Souls-like type combat system with an open world kind of environment. It's pretty cool.
Dr. Mattman was previously the division manager of the Artificial Intelligence, Analytics, and Innovative Development Organization at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where he worked for 24 years. He is an internationally recognized expert in data science, cybersecurity, AI, informatics, to multiple domains, including space science, earth and planetary science, and other industries. Finally, we have Professor Spencer Overton. Professor Overton joins us from the George Washington University Law School, where he is the Patricia Roberts Harris Research Professor of Law and directs GW Law's Multiracial Democracy Project. Professor Overton served in the Obama administration as Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General for Legal Policy at the Department of Justice. And now I wish to yield to Ranking Member Frost for his opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. Artificial intelligence is already influencing nearly every part of our lives, how we work, learn, receive care.
Maybe this was a bad idea. This dude likes to piss me off a lot. This was a bad idea for how I'm feeling right now, but let's go.
Interact with our government and defend our nation. With the right guardrails, AI can help us find new cures in healthcare, accelerate scientific breakthroughs, assist as we work towards modernizing our education system, and even tackle the most stubborn transportation challenges. At the University of Central Florida, go Knights, we have one of the country's major hubs for modeling, simulation, and training, and we talked often about the opportunities AI might create. However, we also need responsible leadership on AI policy to make sure these opportunities don't devolve into disaster, and responsible leadership does not mean going full speed ahead without direction and knowing where we're going. I previously served on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, where we would frequently discuss how government can ensure that every technological breakthrough puts people ahead of concentrated power. And we have to be wary of efforts to leave ordinary families observing the burdens of progress while a privileged few capture the upside. We cannot allow these few to privatize their profits and socialize the consequences. AI should make life more affordable and secure. It should not become another tool for price gouging, another excuse for shifting costs on the working families, or another way for powerful actors to squeeze communities while families struggle to make ends meet. The same is true when it comes to climate and the environment. In Florida, we know that technology can save lives. I was very honored to fly with NOAA's hurricane hunters into Hurricane Milton and saw firsthand during a 9-hour flight how data forecasting and public science help communities prepare for danger and disaster. So yes, AI can help with forecasting, emergency response, grid management, and infrastructure planning, but we can't ignore the cost of the infrastructure behind it. We can't use AI expansion to justify more expensive utility bills, worse pollution, or strained water resources. Progress can lift up so many and make us safer, but not if it requires dusting off coal plants to get supply energy to do so. Because this is a joint roundtable with our military and foreign affairs colleagues, I also want to be equally clear on the national security side. The American AI advantage cannot rest on a theory that the fastest deployment equals the smartest deployment. In national security, we must have clear lines of human accountability, auditable systems, and strong procedural standards, and real oversight over any AI tools. These are life and death uses, and the highest level of scrutiny must be the minimum standard. Hallucinations are problematic enough in day-to-day AI models, but can amount to a war crime if they influence our actions on the battlefield. We need to make sure that any systems that can take lethal action can trace inputs to outputs, rely on sound data, and are designed to minimize collateral damage. That is why I'm concerned with the direction that the Trump administration is taking us when it comes to AI policy. We can support innovation without removing safeguards and protect civil rights and civil liberties. The health, safety, and privacy of our people are not barriers to innovation. They are rights that any new innovation should be focused on strengthening. Congress must figure out how America should lead in AI. The question is whether that leadership will be accountable, fair, and sustainable, or whether it will be defined by a race to the bottom. So I hope today's discussion helps provide concrete perspectives on where AI can deliver genuine wins for everyone, but also answer the following questions. What protections do we need to guide AI use in education, healthcare, finance, and defense? How do we build an AI-ready workforce, including places like Central Florida, and ensure that AI is helping workers, not leaving them behind? And how do we protect the environment and the affordability of utilities so we aren't betraying our neighborhoods and communities in the name of productivity or shareholder value? American leadership in AI should make people safer and freer and not ask them to sacrifice their rights, their air, their water, their privacy, or their pocketbooks, or their future in order to prove that we moved first. So again, thank you so much to all of our panel. And this, you all might be part of history here. This might be the largest panel I've ever seen in a subcommittee. And so to this historic committee hearing, I yield back.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Thank you, panelists. And I want to say thank you. Chairman Timmons has graciously ceded his time for the sake of brevity, and so we can move on. Now turning to our roundtable guests, we'll begin with Mr. Beal. If you'll introduce yourself and give your opening statement.
Chairman Burlison and Timmons, Ranking Member Frost, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. My name is Mark Beal. I'm with the Artificial Intelligence Policy Network. We promote policies that advocate for innovation, national security, and preparedness for superintelligent AI systems. Before that, I served as the inaugural Director of Strategy and Policy at the Pentagon, where we work to accelerate the military's adoption of artificial intelligence. Today, the United States has a capability advantage in artificial intelligence, but we must not rest on our laurels. The choices Congress makes today will determine whether or not our advantage leads to American flourishing or becomes a threat to our liberty and security. AI is already decisive. In the opening days of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. Central Command struck thousands of targets in Iran using AI-enabled targeting infrastructure. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Cooper said publicly that AI is compressing processes that once took days into mere minutes.
Oh, I'm just going to have to
AI progress is also accelerating rapidly.
Take another day
Anthropic recently revealed its most capable model can autonomously find hidden security flaws in every major operating system and web browser, and then figure out how to use those flaws to break in. Just 2 months ago, the best model managed to do this only twice. This one succeeded 181 times. And these capabilities were not explicitly trained, they emerged on their own. This trajectory leads us somewhere unprecedented. Every frontier AI company is explicitly building artificial superintelligence. Superintelligent AI systems will greatly exceed human capability across a variety of domains, including in hacking, weapons design, and even science itself. So today, America's AI advantage is real, but it's fragile. 3 threats can break it. First is bureaucratic paralysis. If the Department of Defense and the intelligence community cannot field AI at the speed of relevance, we will lose. This committee should ensure that acquisition and IT red tape are not strangling deployment. Second, unreliable technology. Today's AI is built for commercial use, not yet for safety-critical national security missions. Deploying unhardened systems invites adversarial sabotage. That is why I recently led a letter with senior military and AI leaders urging Congress to fund a national AI reliability and control initiative. Third, strategic surprise. If superintelligence arrives and we have no threat modeling, no contingency plans, and no testing and evaluation infrastructure, we will be caught flat-footed. Congress should direct the national security enterprise to start preparing now. We need this insurance policy as we accelerate innovation. In conclusion, the nation will prevail when we reject the false choice between innovation and safety, and we move urgently to accelerate both. Thank you. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson. You may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Rob Atkinson, Information Technology Innovation Foundation. A couple things. I think it's important to understand AI is what economists call a general purpose technology, and that means it's a powerful technology that's going to transform not just the computer information sector, but pretty much all sectors. And why I think AI is so important, the U.S. is in a productivity crisis. We have had the lowest productivity in the last 14 years than we've probably had since 1789 if we were measuring it. And that means lower wage growth. It means lower federal revenue growth. If we could boost productivity 1 percentage point faster a year through AI, which I think is more than reasonable, we will see a 22% larger GDP by 2045 and an annual reduction in the budget deficit by $640 billion. That would be a nice thing for all members on the Ways and Means, on the Budget Committee when they have $640 billion more to play with. The problem is that AI adoption is not assured. Just look at the backlash against data centers where there's this massive view that I don't want a data center in my backyard. I'm happy to use AI if I live in Maine. I just don't want a data center there. Or resistance to job loss. 88% of Chinese, under a new survey by the Stanford AI Institute, believe that AI has more benefits than drawbacks. 88% of the Chinese population thinks that. The number's 42% in the United States. And why is that? Because they're constantly being told that AI is going to not only eliminate all their jobs, but if you believe Elon Musk, it'll eliminate all our lives. So the narrative in the U.S., including from AI leaders, is that we're going to have artificial superintelligence anytime soon, and it's going to completely destroy us, or it'll destroy all our jobs. We've written extensively on why that simply is not going to be the case, but the point is, if we don't have an optimistic view on this, we're going to fall behind. And what really distinguished the U.S. in our leadership over the last 100 years is we had the most optimistic view of technology.
Why that's simply not the case? I mean, you could eliminate middle management with it right now. I mean, those that take care of others, that oversee others, you could eliminate most of middle management with AI. Well, what are you talking about? It wouldn't crash anything. It wouldn't disrupt shit. Yes, the fuck it would. It would literally, you're either upper echelons of everything, or you're the lower working class. There's no in between anymore with that. Jennifer, congrats on the 100 followers there over on the Stupid's Play. Yeah. And 888 here. Yes, we have 112 left before Davey eats that hot chicken and tries to do a show. This is going to be fun, guys.
Than any country in the world. The Europeans were always hand-wringing and second-guessing and glasses all half empty. We were the ones that always said, we want more of this. So I think that's critical. The other component besides AI adoption is AI development. And right now we lead in the world in AI development. And Mr. Chairman, you're right. We could lead in adoption, but if we're adopting Chinese technology, that puts us over the barrel. They have complete authority over what we want to do and leverage. So we have to win that battle. And it's not assured we'll win it. We have better large language models. We have more money going into that. But again, a new study just showed that China's share of the top most cited AI scholarly papers has gone from 33% 3 years ago to 41% today, or in 2024. They're a leader in publication volume, citations, and patents. So they're not an also-ran. They're a tough competitor. Europe's not a competitor. China's a tough competitor. So we have to win that battle. And I think if we don't win that battle, there's an allusion to we might lose our liberty. I'm not worried about losing my liberty to AI. I'm worried about losing my liberty to a Marxist-Leninist regime that wants to be the global hegemon. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want my kids to live in that world. And unless we lead in advanced technologies, including AI, we're going to see our national power quite diminished. So thank you.
Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. My name is Charles Crane, and I'm the Managing Vice President of Policy at the National Association of Manufacturers. AI is increasingly integral to manufacturing operations in the modern era. It makes our workers safer, it makes our products more sophisticated, and it makes our shop floors more efficient. So first, with respect to safety, a critically important topic. AI can monitor the shop floor and alert workers to safety hazards. It can watch out for defective machinery and enable predictive maintenance on the shop floor.
No, it
even goes so far as to help workers understand how a certain repetitive motion might lead to back pain over time, and then to avoid or change that motion. As for efficiency, AI can optimize equipment maintenance, identifying problems before they manifest and avoiding downtime on the shop floor. It powers supply chain resiliency across the industry. It helps design efficient production processes. It improves quality control. This ever-expanding range of AI use cases across manufacturing is why 80% of manufacturers, 80%, say that AI will be essential to their business by 2030. Key to this advancement by 2030, this innovation across the sector, is the modern manufacturing workforce. As I've already said, AI is making workers safer, but it's also augmenting workers' capabilities. It's maximizing their talents. It's relieving them of mundane tasks and getting them better data so they can exercise human judgment to make more informed decisions. But to maximize these gains, our workers need to understand fulsomely how to use AI, how to contextualize its inputs and outputs, and that requires training. That's why the manufacturing industry is investing $32 billion every single year in workforce development, an increasing share of which is focused, of course, on AI. In fact, at NAM, our education and workforce affiliate, the Manufacturing Institute, just announced a $10 million investment in new AI training programs. Now, despite these investments, despite this ironclad commitment to innovation and to developing the manufacturing workforce of the future, we can't do it all on our own as an industry. We need federal workforce programs that are flexible and forward-leaning. We need permitting reform. We need energy abundance. We need tax policy like HR 1 that drives growth and investment in our industry. And we need AI policies that recognize the promise of this transformative technology. That means reviewing the rules that are already on the books before adopting any new ones. It means that if there are new policies that are needed, they should be risk-based and context-specific. It means that compliance costs shouldn't lock small manufacturers out of the promise of this technology. And it means that we need workable national standards rather than a 50-state patchwork. With these policy tools in place, our industry and our workforce, the manufacturing workforce of tomorrow, are ready to drive even more AI innovation and to leverage that AI to power a new era of manufacturing in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My expertise is in physical AI, in applying AI to the physical world. What Divergent has done is to build a system that takes superintelligence and applies it to how you design and manufacture things. We are a partner to the world's largest aerospace and defense companies and auto companies. What that concretely means is they will come to us and say, for example, with a missile system, which was recently publicized, we take the requirements, we put it into an AI front end, it creates the most efficient possible structure. That structure has its manufacturing and assembly instructions. Then on a machine, whatever gets generated can be immediately printed and assembled. What that means on the defense side is you're taking years of engineering and reducing it literally to weeks. You're taking the requirements to build specific tooling for a specific product and doing completely away with that. You're taking away the fixturing of a specific factory for one product and taking that away. What that means is, in the future, almost anyone can take these tools, generate a structure which is perfectly optimized, and on any machine, anywhere, print it and then assemble it. Out of our current factory, we have over 500 products. All of those were AI generated. Any machine we have located anywhere can print that structure and assemble that structure. I think in the Wall Street Journal, there was recent coverage. It was called the first Pentagon miracle. In weeks, we generated the design for an affordable cruise missile system that now will be produced this year in volume of thousands. What I would say to this committee is, that's been the Missouri show it to me moment. This is a technology that is ready to scale. We can, with this technology, which was developed in the United States, leapfrog China and build a very different industrial base. We do have the opportunity to reindustrialize.
Wait a minute.
But we have to do it before China catches on. And there's the frequent statement that China innovates and we wait. We can't wait, because if we do wait, that will be a checkmate. If we don't wait, we can reindustrialize. And this technology, which will first be scaled in defense and aerospace, can be used across the different commercial sectors.
Mr. Heineman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. My name is Jamie Heineman, Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for John Deere. And on behalf of Deere's 80,000 employees worldwide, I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to address you all here today.
This might be a good
John Deere is
one,
dedicated to assisting customers in meeting the increasing global demand for food, fuel, shelter, and clothing. We tackle challenges like limited land, water, and rural labor availability by leveraging technology, including artificial intelligence, to empower growers to achieve higher productivity with fewer resources. This approach allows farmers to accomplish more with less while improving their economic and environmental sustainability. Deere currently connects over 1.1 million machines around the world using terrestrial, cellular, and low Earth orbit satellite networks. This allows data generated during farming tasks like planting and harvesting to be sent to the cloud for analysis. The insights gained from that analysis help optimize a farmer's current tasks, such as improving logistics, and contribute to enhancing future farming seasons. A common concern regarding farmers' data is ownership, and we're unequivocal on this matter. John Deere customers retain control over their data, including how it is collected, stored, processed, and shared. That said, we also believe that the valuable insights that can be derived from this information will play a crucial role in meeting our industry's collective objective of sustaining a growing global population. Farmers use these same connections to deliver data-driven instructions back to their machines, such as prescriptions for applying different rates of fertilizer to different parts of a field, navigation information used to auto-steer machines, and input specifications like seed and fertilizer. These network services are offered to farmers through partnerships with third-party companies, allowing farmers to have greater flexibility in choosing the services based on their own preferences and needs. In addition to connecting our products, we have significantly increased the compute capability embedded within those products. This allows for more advanced control and enables a unique plant-level management capability where each plant can be nurtured to achieve its optimal potential. Our self-propelled sprayers, for example, feature 9 graphical processing units and 36 cameras. These cameras can scan a distance of 120 feet at a speed of 15 miles per hour, and through artificial intelligence, they analyze images to identify weed pixels, allowing precise herbicide application only where it's necessary. This See and Spray technology is not some futuristic vision. It's already in the field. In 2025, U.S. farmers achieved an impressive 48% reduction in contact herbicide usage across 4 million acres of corn, soy, and cotton, saving approximately 26 million gallons of herbicide. But reducing herbicide use is just the start of AI's potential in agriculture. For instance, we have integrated the same graphical processing units with stereo cameras in our autonomous tillage solution. This application of artificial intelligence allows us to identify obstacles in fields, prompting the fully autonomous tractor and tillage tool to pause and await further instructions from the farmer who may be engaged in other higher value tasks. This solution directly addresses labor scarcity, especially during critical agricultural periods such as harvest and planting.
Probably.
In the past 4 growing seasons, this AI technology facilitated autonomous operations on over 200,000 acres of corn and soy in North America. As rural to urban migration continues, AI-powered solutions like this one become even more essential to U.S. farm productivity. Additionally, we leverage the power of AI to train models used for our technical assistance. This enables us to promptly address customer or dealer machine issues, ensuring swift problem resolution. AI allows us to efficiently identify similar issues across the machine population and expedite solutions to the affected customers. As a result, the impact duration during crucial agronomic timing windows is significantly reduced. The future of U.S. agriculture is being built today with tools that enable data-driven decision-making by farmers. Artificial intelligence plays a crucial role in turning that data into actionable insights in the field. Your support is critical. As Congress continues to deliberate on the Farm Bill, I urge you to consider proposals like the Precise Act and the Precision Ag Loan Act that would expand eligibility for USDA conservation loan programs to include the adoption of precision technologies. Further bills like the Last Acre Act are essential for farmers to fully leverage the benefits of AI and precision technologies. I also encourage you to support U.S. farmers by supporting the demand for...
Yeah, that's why I do it, Jonah. If you do it early in the game, like what I'm doing, like straight off bat, I'm going to make a badass little place for us, and so that way when we have to expand as we go along, we have the ability to do so. I'm going to have one island do everything we need. But yeah.
Renewable energy that they provide in the form of ethanol, like E15, and other bio-based fuels. Putting these technologies in the hands of America's farmers not only improves productivity and profitability for growers, but also enables them to produce enough food, fuel, and fiber to sustain the growing world population. And that benefits us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mattman, you may begin.
What up, Muffin? Welcome to
Chairman Burlison, Chairman Timmons, Ranking Member Frost, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Chris Mattman. I've spent over 2 decades building large-scale artificial intelligence and data systems across NASA, national security programs, across academia, and across industry. My perspective comes from building technology and employing artificial intelligence in real operational environments, not just from studying it. I'd like to focus on a central issue that I believe will define whether or not AI strengthens or weakens American prosperity, which is the subject of this hearing. And that's who builds artificial intelligence and who benefits from it. So today we are seeing 2 powerful trends that are happening at the same time. First, artificial intelligence is driving workforce disruption. It's changing how work gets done across industries. And that's everything from software engineering to customer service to scientific research.
Why does this motherfucker look like Will Ferrell trying to play Harry Carey?
And this shift is happening rapidly, and it's accelerating. The risk is not just job loss, it's job transformation, and that's without a clear pathway for workers to adapt and to move into higher value roles. And second, artificial intelligence capability is becoming highly concentrated. The most advanced artificial intelligence models, infrastructure, and talent are increasingly vertically integrated within a small number of bigger technology companies. And this concentration creates a structural imbalance. It limits broader participation, it slows knowledge diffusion, and it risks leaving key parts of our national ecosystem behind. This includes the United States national laboratories, higher education, and academia, and small business. And so in my work with the University of California system and in collaboration with the Department of Energy, including initiatives like Project Genesis, I've seen a different model. I've seen one that I believe in and that we should scale. And that model brings together national laboratories, it brings together universities, public-private partnerships, and it helps to create shared AI infrastructure that's based on open innovation, open source models, and it creates pathways for workforce development. It allows students, researchers, practitioners to work on large-scale artificial intelligence problems without needing to be inside only a handful of companies. And it doesn't mean that they won't eventually end up there. It just means that their path could have the dual-use benefit before they get there of strengthening American AI leadership and talent development along the way, and not just typing prompts into chatbots and claiming AI dominance. This isn't just about research. It's about building a distributed national capability. We should be asking, how do we replicate and expand the Genesis model across agencies like NASA and beyond? How do we ensure that our national labs and academic institutions are not just consumers of AI, but leaders in actually building it? And if we do this well, we can turn workforce disruption into workforce opportunity. We can create new pipelines of talent, new centers of innovation, a more resilient and competitive AI ecosystem. And if we do not, we risk a future where AI capability is so concentrated, access is so limited, and the benefits are unevenly distributed across these global technology corporations that we cannot guarantee that they have America's best interests in mind. The United States has a long history of pairing federal investment with academic excellence and national lab infrastructure to drive innovation. And that's from aerospace to the internet itself. And AI should be no different. This is our opportunity to ensure that AI is not only powerful, but broadly empowering. And thank you for the opportunity today, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you. Now, ask Professor Overton for your opening statement.
Chairs, ranking member, distinguished members, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today. When used responsibly, AI certainly has the potential to drive progress across a range of industries. In my own research, I certainly found that AI can help community organizations engage citizens. It can help election administrators allocate resources in ways that reduce wait times to vote at the polls. AI tools can help expand language access so that the 15 million US citizens with limited English proficiency can participate meaningfully in civic life. But AI progress can't come at the expense of our economy, environment, or communities. We're already seeing risks of workforce displacement, often without adequate transition support. AI-enabled dynamic pricing can raise costs for consumers in opaque ways, contributing to affordability challenges. The rapid growth of data centers can increase energy demand, strain local infrastructure, and increase energy costs. AI systems can replicate bias in marginalized communities. They can enable data, or they can
AI is only as strong as the person that programs it, right? So if it can replicate bias, doesn't that mean that bias was created by you?
collect data and enable manipulation that's highly targeted. Now, my scholarship focuses on democracy, but the broader literature also documents potential harms to mental health, economic fairness, and the environment. Without intervention, AI risks concentrating benefits in the hands of the few. Legal guardrails are therefore essential to ensure that AI is safe, effective, and fair. The trajectory of AI will not be determined by markets or technologists alone, but human choice here by developers, by deployers, and yes, by policymakers. Congress has a central role to play. Self-regulation has proven inadequate, particularly in a market characterized by concentrated power. Just 4 companies control 84% of the market share of generative AI models and platforms, and just 3 companies control 2/3 of the global cloud computing infrastructure. Well-designed legal guardrails can enhance, not hinder, U.S. competitiveness by building trust, reducing risk, and fostering broad-based innovation. Legal guardrails should ensure transparency, should prevent bias, should protect privacy, and should prevent manipulation. We should also invest in workforce transitions, as well as closing the digital divide and assistive technologies like language and disability access tools. So thank you, and I look forward to your discussion and questions.
Thank you. I'll now begin my line of questions. I'll first start with Mr. Zinger. Thank you once again for inviting me or opening up your doors to let us come in and see your...
I'm sorry, Mr. Burlison, but you look straight up like Bubbles. You look like Bubbles from the Trailer Park Boys. I can't not see it, man.
Amazing manufacturing facility. It is truly like the closest thing to Star Trek I've ever seen. Can you elaborate or explain how using AI, especially particularly in manufacturing, you're able to come up with concepts and ideas or designs that in many ways were never conceived?
Well, I think the compute power that we now have allows us to use, say, a set of algorithms where you're taking performance requirements and simulating that performance, and then making sure that the structure that gets created, the geometries that are created, the gauge of it, the shape of the structure are all as efficient as possible. And humans alone can't do that. That compute power allows that type of simulation. And we now have a way to create those very efficient structures and print them in a machine that will print any structure that gets generated, and a way to assemble them so that we can assemble any structure that gets generated. And what that means is there's now a set of tools and a platform that can act very rapidly in an adaptive way. I mean, we've seen what's happened in the Ukraine and the need to adapt weapons systems rapidly. Here, instead of a long engineering period and then having to set up tooling for a specific product and fixturing for a specific factory, you can rapidly adapt. That, on the commercial side, over time, could look like having factories distributed across the United States and the access to those tools distributed very broadly in a democratic way, and have a real broad reindustrialization of the United States. Obviously, that first is going to be driven by the needs today of our military for this technology and what it can produce.
Thank you, Mr. Zinger. Dr. Atkinson, you mentioned the NIMBY aspect that we're seeing across the country, where you have communities that are saying, not in my backyard, we don't want these data centers. Can you kind of touch on that point and why communities should be embracing having a data center as opposed to shunning this?
Yeah, thank you. Well, a couple of things. Recently, all the major large language model and AI builders, all of them, agreed and committed that they will not raise electric bills in any area they're building a data center. this should be the end of the debate. They've said, we will buy energy, but we will pay a premium for it, and
So, you put a data center somewhere, it's going to eat up whatever reserve power you have left in your power plant. If they don't build their own, which most of them are supposed to, but they start eating yours up. It's just like that one in the ticker, 9 gigawatt data center. Unless they're building their own power? Yeah, your city cannot fucking expand in any way unless they have a reserve of power. Because why would you build even a house? Why would you build a store? Why would you build anything if you're just going to cause brownouts? Because your system starts to get overloaded.
we will not enable or facilitate the local electric bills of the neighbors in the community to go up. Okay, that should now be off the table.
If anything, it would keep them lower for the ratepayers.
Well, it could. That's the other thing. You know, we used to have an electric system where large users got less because it was more efficient, cost efficient to provide. But in any case, they've committed that, so I don't think there's an issue there. Secondly, we heard about this question of jobs, which is critical. Data centers, even certainly many of the jobs in data centers are during construction. But think about that. And most of the data centers are in rural areas or smaller towns. They're not going to be in downtown D.C. And carpenters, electricians, pipe fitters, all those people come for 40, 50 miles around for 3 to 5 years. But then even after that, the jobs at data centers, it's not like there's one person. There are a lot of jobs at data centers, and they pay quite well. So it's striking to me that a lot of the people who oppose this, I don't know, maybe they live in cities and have a nice, cushy office job. But if you're living in a rural area where you're seeing maybe deindustrialization or lack of jobs, data centers are an important sort of rural development or small community development tool, and I think that's how we need to think about it. When it comes to pollution, they don't, not like a factory, they don't pollute. When it comes to water use, in most places in the country, we don't have water shortages. You know, Missouri.
How does it help? You're only going to need a handful of fucking people to keep up with the technical aspect of it. It pretty much runs itself. The only thing you need is just basic maintenance. How does it help the community?
It does not have water shortages. Illinois does not have water shortages. Maybe the desert does. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is, frankly, a lot of NIMBY, not in my backyard types, activists who mobilize against this. I think part of it's an anti-corporate animus that we've sort of seen more and more. But the real problem is if we don't build data centers, our models are not going to get better at the same rate that the Chinese are. The Chinese have no problem putting up a coal-fired power plant, building a data center, and getting it done 3 times faster than we can do it in the U.S., and they're going to do that. So it's sad that we've gotten to a point where NIMBYism trumps the national interest, but that's where we are, and that's why I think Congress can take some important steps in that direction.
Thank you.
It's sad. It's sad, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't want the government buying up your property so they can put data centers up. Because it's going to hamper our progress. Number one, why are your glasses looking like they're going to fall off your fucking face at any given moment? But it's going to hinder, it's going to hinder us, our progression, our advancement, if people don't want data centers in their backyard. Buck up, ladies and gentlemen. We need data centers there so we can advance ourselves.
And I'm going to ask these 3 gentlemen really quickly, if you could just give me one thing that the state of Missouri, my home state, could do to entice your amazing manufacturers to come to Southwest Missouri. If there's one or 2 things that we could do quickly that to do that, whether it's John Deere to increase its presence in Southwest Missouri, which we do have some presence of John Deere. Mr. Zinger, I would love to see Divergent have a facility in Southwest Missouri. Mr. Crane, what kind of advice would you have for us?
Just pop out the chat, brother.
Address this as well.
Thank you for that question. It's a great question and something I think that communities across the country are asking. You know, we want to see manufacturing investment across the country and data center investment. They're mutually beneficial. If we have, for instance, reforms in the permitting process, which is something we can do at the federal level and something that NAM has supported, but also there's a lot of state and local permitting burdens. If we can make it easier to get shovels in the ground on capital-intensive projects like manufacturing and like data centers, then there's mutual benefit to those local communities because you get the jobs that are created there, you get the economic opportunities that come from that, and then you have broader economic development in the sector from just being able to get shovels in the ground in all these types of projects.
Thank you. Mr. Zinger, really quickly.
Sure. I'd say the main factories we're rolling out are near military bases where there's a specific program for, say, a specific weapons system, and I will certainly take a hard look at how we can match those 2 things up and get a factory set up.
Springfield's between both Whiteman and Fort Leonard Wood, so you're welcome to come. Mr. Hinman.
Yeah, whether it's Deere or the 50,000 employees that work in the John Deere dealerships in Southwest Missouri, like in many rural locations, I think workforce development is a factor. It's just a fundamental truth that the skill sets that are resident within John Deere dealers today and John Deere, and even on the farm, are going to be required to be different than the skill sets that were necessary even 10 years ago.
And I have a last question for Dr. Mattman. Given the nature of open source code, and I appreciate that you made your software Apache TIC, is that what it's called? That it's open software. I myself, I may be the only member of Congress that's actively currently using OpenClaw on my device. In fact, I've queued up a question to ask my OpenClaw agents whether or not we should be integrating Apache TICA, and if there's any value for my team of agents. I have a team of autonomous agents working on my laptop as we speak, making my life more productive. What's the benefits of having this software be open? Is there security risks as a nation? And how can we educate more people to go beyond large language model usage and to do something like agentic AI?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe we should be doubling and tripling down on open models. It has the dual use benefit of actually training our workforce. All I ever hear about is that we're behind China in training, and then I look at things like CDance and what they're doing with open weight models, which is experimenting with these open source models, but also building up their skills in doing it. And many people talk about it in the news, just seeing that, the intellectual property issues with Brad Pitt fighting Tom Cruise in a very hyper-realistic scenario, but the technical sophistication that actually went behind experimenting with those models, it trains up our workforce, it prepares them long before they ever get a job at any of the big tech companies, in terms of doing that. Now, when applied towards national priority problems, and I have a lot of experience in doing this with both NASA, the Department of Defense, this becomes something where national priority problems, where we typically today have a procurement-focused mindset, you can actually build internal capacity of the workforce for learning and how to use these open source models. It allows really soft upskilling in areas beyond just typing prompts, actually learning how to build the data that these models are trained on. A lot of people don't understand there's an infinite supply of unstructured information to train these models out there, but AI expects highly structured data, to train it. And most people will never even go beyond typing prompts to AI, but I actually disagree with that. I think people need to learn how to prepare the data for AI. I don't think everyone necessarily has to train frontier models. They could use things like TICA or other open source models to actually do this, but for all sorts of applications, like we're talking about manufacturing here, but for science, for technology. Again, like in my opinion, if I had one thing to say, it would be to scale Project Genesis and have not just have it for the DOE, but have it for NASA, NIH, NSF. Genesis should be a model across the government for that. Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Walkinshaw for his line question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your insightful statements. I wanted to focus just a little bit on AI adoption in the federal government. And, I'm a relative optimist about the possibilities for AI adoption in the federal government, but I also recognize the very real risks and challenges. I would like to see a federal government where we're utilizing AI tools and agents to make our government more effective and efficient and deliver better services for the taxpayers. I'd love a situation where federal workers, like Mr. Burlison, perhaps can utilize an AI tool or vibe code a solution to a workflow bottleneck in their office or agency, but do it in a way that's safe and secure. It doesn't open us up to risks at the hands of our adversaries, or put in place algorithmic biases that negatively impact our constituents. And that's a challenging balance to strike. One of the concerns I have is the rapid growth in shadow AI in the federal government. So federal agencies and employees utilizing AI tools as we speak that might not be authorized, and their agency might not have visibility into the use of those tools. They don't have visibility, meaning they can't secure it. And that, I think there's a lot of indications that's growing perhaps exponentially as we sit here. And I'm interested, and maybe I'll start with Mr. Beal. Based on your experience, do you share that concern? What can we do to get our arms around it, prevent it from getting out of control?
Thank you, Congressman. In my experience at DoD and driving innovation there, we encountered three fundamental challenges: data, talent, and culture. On the data issue, the department, you can think of it as like a set of competing organizations all under one umbrella, but there was never a central data repository. And now, over the last 10 years, we've been moving really hard to correct that. But normally, very effective organizations, when they think about their data, they think about the data as an enterprise asset, not as an asset of various business units. And breaking down those barriers to integrating this data is like sort of foundational. That has to happen. It's not the sexiest work, but it's so important. On the talent side, we always need better folks in the door, working side by side with our military officers and with our civilians. And it's really the marriage of those two groups of people, the people that know the bureaucracy, that know how to hack it, and the people that have the talent and the technology understanding, and putting those two people together can really accelerate progress. And then on the culture side, especially in cybersecurity, the department has adopted this mindset that security equals compliance. And that's simply not the case. Security can actually allow you to move faster. And I'm thinking about the various risk management framework and the way that the software gets deployed, because what we're going to lose is, like with these tools, we can have decentralized innovation at scale, but the fact that the software is not allowed for deployment right now is something that's going to be increasingly problematic over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me interrupt. We understand Mr. Zinger has to catch a flight, and you can leave whenever you wish, but we appreciate your presence here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I think what the work you're doing is critically important, and thank you for calling this hearing.
Thank you.
Dr. Atkinson, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. I've been involved in e-government for probably 30 years, was involved in helping Senator Lieberman pass the eGov Act in 2002. And this is a very common problem. When emerging technologies come into the federal government, you often have the CIOs, for a lot of different reasons, lag behind. And these employees are not trying to be, they're just like, they want a really good tool, and they can't get it in their enterprise. And so I think the real problem or challenge is, do the CIOs, as well as the federal CIO, which I don't think we have one now, I have to go back and look, we have a CTO maybe, which we need a CIO. That was one of the things the eGov Act 2002 did. Number one, do they have a plan for entire enterprise-wide AI adoption? And then secondly, do they have the budget for it? Because without the money, they can't do that. So I'd be happy to have your staff touch base with our team, because we've been doing a lot of work in the last 2 years on AI adoption and use in the federal government and how it could work. So,
thank you. Dr. Mattman, anything you wanted to add on that AI adoption in the federal government, maybe the shadow AI challenge?
Thank you. So in executing kind of like the chief AI officer playbook over the past couple years as one of the sort of, less than 50 chief AI officers in the nation, there were sort of 3 pillars of it. And one of them was related to shadow AI, but it was basically, hey, we need to do an AI inventory at every organization and understand, given the fact that most AI software today is procured and not necessarily created, inside of the agency, a lot of people think about it just from a perspective of like surface area and risk. But I actually thought about it from a perspective of like unearthing these types of shadow AI capabilities, also for open opportunity and innovation. First, it helps build an AI use case repository, which, the VA was trying to do. They actually are one of the only other places I've seen recently, and their chief AI officer just left, but VA actually published their AI use case inventory, and it was based off of that AI technology inventory. So if I had anything to tell organizations nowadays, is whoever's your head of AI or the chief AI officer responsibility, and you haven't started on an AI inventory first, it's good from a procurement perspective to harden the rules, and it also is a partnership opportunity with cyber, to understand the risk. But it's also an opportunity to identify, and the CFOs are happy about this, rationalization, for duplicative capabilities that you might not necessarily, you might have 2 line items that you're investing in that you don't need. So for all those reasons, that's kind of what I'd like to share. Thank you.
Okay. And Professor Overton, I want to give you a chance here. And one of my concerns, or something I think is an important principle also in terms of AI adoption in the federal government, is that when there are decisions made that impact people's lives, and that's what is taking place in the federal government every day, that there be a human in the decision chain, right? I don't believe that our constituents will accept that an AI tool or agent alone denied their Social Security disability claim or their VA disability status, right? Without there being a human being who has some accountability for that decision. I guess, A, would you agree with that? How do we operationalize that and prevent, when we put humans in the chain, they can bring their own biases as well, in addition to the potential for algorithmic bias. So how do we navigate that challenge to get the benefits without the potential downsides?
Yeah, so certainly for high-risk uses, human in review, human review is important. I want to go back, though, because you suggested that employees were using maybe unauthorized tools that could be unsafe, right? And I guess my concern is that the federal government products and uses of AI may be safe, that certain EOs and OMB memos removed protections for audits, for disclosure, for risk management. There was an EO and an OMB memo that basically said the federal government will no longer procure or use AI that's been fine-tuned to reduce bias here, right? This is the so-called anti-woke AO here, right? And so, and at the same time, the federal government, is using Grok, which is basically an AI that's referred to itself as a mechanized Hitler, right? So the notion that, I think it's very possible that a rogue federal employee could be using a tool that is safer than what the federal government is using. I think that's very possible. So I think this concept of automation is incredibly important. Having real processes where humans, particularly with high-risk decisions, are in play is incredibly important. There were some protections in place before. I think they could have been a little bit stronger, and I think that that's certainly something that's important moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I now recognize Chairman Timmons for his line of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Emerging technology is changing our lives mostly for the better, and Congress has an obligation to regulate emerging technology, and we have failed to act in a number of areas. Number one, I would say cybersecurity and privacy, data privacy. We have ceded a lot of our regulatory authority overseas and to states, and it's not gone very well, and it's long overdue. Digital assets we're working on, blockchain technology we're working on, and we have made progress there. It's been very slow, and it's been very difficult, but I think we're going to finish it, get it across the finish line. I mean, AI, I think, is the area that has the most cause for concern, yet we have the least capacity to actually legislate any kind of framework. And I guess the first question I'm going to have is for Mr. Beal. Federal preemption is a major issue, and we've seen what happens with cybersecurity and data privacy as it relates to a patchwork framework of states and the adverse impacts that's had. Would you agree that state-by-state regulation for AI would be bad?
Thank you, Mr. Timmons. I think a state patchwork of 50 different regulations would be incredibly tough for the industry to navigate over time. I think, however, when you preempt the states, you need to preempt them with something. And I think it goes to the core issue of trust and the American public's declining views toward AI, and they simply don't trust many of the folks in the industry that are building this. In the last political battles over the last year or so, where folks have been trying to push state preemption without any accompanying federal policy, I think we can trust anybody. So I think in an ideal scenario, we have a strong federal standard, we work that out, and then we can talk about preemption. I think that's ultimately what's going to be best for American innovation.
Are you aware of a legislative proposal that would achieve that objective federally?
Yes, sir. There's a couple of proposals out there right now. We've seen the White House release its sort of 4 pillars, the 4 C's that they've talked about. Senator Blackburn has put out the Trump AI America Act as kind of a counter proposal. And so those are 2 kind of robust sets of ideas that I think somewhere in the middle of that might start to get to a right answer.
Have states passed any laws that are going to make it harder to preempt, or is it still very nascent in that process?
It seems relatively nascent so far. There have been some efforts on a bipartisan basis in both red states and blue states to move legislation forward, again, in the absence of congressional action. I think SB 53 out of California is one that a lot of people in my industry talk about, is something that even the industry has accepted. Then Governor Cox in Utah and Governor DeSantis in Florida have also been floating their various proposals as well. And recently in my home Commonwealth of Virginia, Governor Spanberger signed into law some legislation as well that looked pretty interesting from a technical perspective.
What are your thoughts on the executive order? I mean, the president signed an executive order to try to address this when we were unable to include it in the NDAA. Do you think that has effect, or is it being treated as messaging?
I'm sorry,
So the president signed an executive order when we were unable to include federal ban in the National Defense Authorization Act. So the current status quo is that states are going to pursue this, and the executive order has not been effective. Is that essentially the status quo?
It seems to be the case that right now there's this gridlock on the way forward for any kind of national framework, and there's a bunch of competing ideas out there that are floating around. I think as the public turns more and more against this issue and it becomes more and more politicized, it's only going to get harder. And I think we're seeing these data center bans coming up now. I think 5 states are going to have that referendum on the ballots this year. And of course, if we don't continue to industrialize, we're not going to be able to compete effectively with China. So there needs to be a path forward at the federal level that I think tries to account for innovation and safety.
Thank you for that. Yeah, China doesn't have issues with building data centers. They'll tell their people to do whatever they want. And Dr. Atkinson, I was coming to you next. So in my district, a $3 billion data center was planned and was ultimately withdrawn due to intense public backlash. It seems that the major arguments against it were potential energy use and then, I guess, just eyesore. Are those generally the top 2 kind of pushback against this, or what are the other major issues with data centers?
Yeah. Could I have the liberty of just quickly responding?
Yes, please, absolutely.
First of all, I think there definitely should be preemption, and the question of replace it with what is replace it with nothing. We're so far early into AI, we don't even know what it is. We don't know what it's going to be in a few years. The Europeans passed the AI Act before large language models came on the scene. And we don't have spreadsheet regulation. We don't have relational database regulation, but either one of those could have bias. Well, why don't we have those? Because anybody using a spreadsheet or a relational database for major things like giving a credit report already falls under federal law of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So we don't need to regulate AI. What we need to regulate and make sure is regulated are the applications. So if you're using AI in a particular area, 99% of the time that application will be regulated. You put AI in an autonomous vehicle, it's like, oh, we don't care. No, we have NHTSA. You can't put AI in a vehicle without the Department of Transportation overseeing it.
Should it be illegal to take someone's likeness and create pornographic images?
So we should have. And by the way, we have.
I'm with you.
No, it's a great question. And my answer is ITIF has been pushing for that for 10 years, literally for 10 years, asking Congress to pass a law. But I can do that without AI. I can do that with Adobe.
Well, it's less believable.
But my point is, I don't think we should be regulating the tool by which you would do something so obscene and obnoxious. We should be regulating the action.
Sure.
If you create a porn image of somebody, so my point is, it's not the technology that we should be thinking about. It's all of those applications that we really don't want. I think that's what we should be regulating. And anyway, so I'll move over to your question. I think the big concern is energy, because people feel like their energy bill is going to go up. And again, I think that's pretty much should be off the table now, because Microsoft took the lead on that about 2 months ago, and then all the major companies agreed that they were not going to allow, or they were not going to support. So I think really that's the main one. In terms of facilities, I don't think that's the issue. There's warehouses that are built in smaller towns and rural areas, and people sort of want it. So I think it's more what I really worry about in the U.S. is the sort of overarching demonization of AI. I mean, I use that word explicitly. I think we just hear so many bad things about it. We've heard it on this panel. AI is going to lead to unemployment. According to the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, last year we had the lowest rate of job loss that we've had since they started collecting that data in 1995. So AI is not disrupting the labor market. It's not killing jobs. To the extent it's doing anything, it's helping cure diseases. It's helping with development of clean energy. It's all of these wonderful things. So I think part of what Congress's job is to...
Military use of AI should be separate. Nope, I'm sorry. Military use of AI should be more stringent. Imagine what the federal government would do to you with AI. Yeah, this shit needs to be controlled.
And obviously that doesn't mean we should be oblivious to challenges. There's challenges with automobiles kill 35,000 people a year. But we generally as a society, we say, yeah, we're willing to take that trade-off. We want automobiles. By the way, one of the great things about autonomous vehicles is they will get that number down to maybe 3. 1,000.
Sure.
So I think part of this is just, if we're going to win against the Chinese, who have 100% positive view, as a society, we have to say, look, this is a critical technology, and we generally want it. Not that we would be libertarians and say absolutely nothing, but if we have a narrative that says bad, 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 which is what we have now, literally, every single article you read is bad. I think that's going to hurt our development.
Look, quantum computing actually broke cryptocurrencies back in. Quantum computing did it in record fucking time. There's one down here. Researcher breaks 15-bit elliptical curve key in largest quantum attack, wins 1 Bitcoin. The quantum computing, dude. Yeah, you're gonna have to do a whole new set of encryption for this shit.
Thank you. One last very brief question. Mr. Henman, you said that herbicide AI resulted in a very large number reduction in
China
herbicide
AI
usage.
is infringing our data privacy.
49%.
Should we have?
Okay.
Should we have
That is
AI
pretty
that can
incredible.
block
And
them, though?
essentially,
I mean,
it's
we
just
should.
recognizing what actually needs herbicide and what doesn't, and then
But what happens when you
selecting the
turn
amount
that inward?
and all of that.
The state of the art in agriculture historically has been to put the same herbicide across every square foot or square yard of the field. And with AI, you don't have to do that. You only need to put it where the weeds are.
That's pretty incredible. Mr. Chairman, now you back. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Ranking Member Frost.
Thank you so much. Mr. Overton, I want to talk a little bit about AI uses and Americans' privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. Why is it important that Americans' privacy be a consideration throughout the development and use of AI technologies rather than an afterthought or a reactionary thing?
Thank you. There are real harms that are happening now. This isn't just a messaging issue where your constituents feel like, hey, I'm concerned about this message. There are real concerns they have in terms of issues like bias, where black folks are disproportionately labeled as gorillas in terms of photo recognition programs.
All right. Hold on. You actually have a point with this one. AI will take images of black people and then portray them as gorillas. No, you do have a point with that one, okay? It looks at black people and thinks gorilla. But again, wasn't that the human bias built into it, though? I mean, because you were training off everything. A lot of people just make references to black people looking like gorillas all the time. So AI was just like, black people are gorillas, I guess. I mean, he does have a point with that one, but fuck.
Where we're talking about health algorithms that aren't working for certain populations, or hiring tools, or facial recognition systems, that these are real harms, and they're harms that are connected to the collection of data and the...
You just ate a double Nutella milkshake and about 1/4 of the fries. That is outstanding for you. I'm proud of myself for a person who has eating issues. I'm proud of you too. You know you gotta eat. He keeps about it going. That's why I had to force some stuff down, and my stomach's been torn up, but I still gotta keep it down. I still gotta get that energy up.
Use of that data to deploy the goal of a particular company or interest. I am all for competition. I think it's great in terms of the space race when we talk about the Russians, right? But when we talk about McCarthyism and the Red Scare, and the lack of concern about civil liberties, that's a real cost in terms of people. When we talk about World War II and being concerned and saying, let's round up the Japanese Americans, folks, somebody has to control these folks because we have this larger goal. We recognize that that's a problem, and that's not a burden that should fall on that particular population now. We shouldn't just basically say somebody has to bear the cost. We should basically collectively absorb those costs as opposed to externalizing them on populations who are least prepared to bear them.
Do you feel like the private sector right now has the right incentives in place to police itself in terms of bias, transparency, fairness?
Yeah, their incentives are really what they should be in terms of market share, growing quickly, and market share in this growing field here. There is a need for an entity in terms of Congress. Your constituents are looking for you, not for companies, to step up and protect them in terms of jobs, in terms of bias, in terms of the environment. They're trusting you, that person that they voted for, to do that as opposed to companies. For them, that's the way the system works right.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Yes, Dr. Atkinson.
So again, a lot of these stories are not apocryphal, but they're in the past. Like, for example, the whole issue of facial recognition bias against dark-skinned people. I would encourage you to look at the last NIST study. NIST did an evaluation. Facial recognition providers can submit their algorithm, their system to NIST, and NIST tests them. And I think 3 years ago when NIST did it, they found that the top 20% of the 100 or so applications had actually no bias. In fact, if anything, there was a slight bias against white people, but it was statistically insignificant. So in other words, no bias between dark-skinned people and light-skinned people, man or woman. Now, what should the lesson be? The lesson should be the federal government should never, ever buy a facial recognition system from a company that doesn't pass that NIST test. So there are companies out there, it's not because they want to be biased, it's a hard thing to do technically, and their systems aren't as good. And so the rule should be don't buy those, and we should encourage private sector companies to buy them. But I think it is a mistake to say that these technologies inherently have these problems. There are good facial recognition systems with, again, according to NIST, no statistical bias. The other thing I'd say is I think companies have a lot of incentive because let's just say hypothetically you're selling an AI system to a corporation and they're using it in their hiring decisions.
Y'all remember that? Like that whole thing with AI, just like imagine this, imagine that. And they started turning black people as monkeys. They started taking like founding fathers and turning them black and shit. You remember that? Like, yeah, there is an inherent bias in everything, right? Yeah, you can't picture white people, but black people, everything, including gorillas. White people were turned black and black people were turned into gorillas. Okay, so apparently AI, we're all fucked with AI if that's the case, because it's going to think white people are bad, so when it looks at a white person, it's going to kill it. You see how this goes?
And they find out that the algorithm is biased against women for whatever reason it might be, the data input or whatever. There's going to be two big problems there if that's uncovered. One, they will get an EEOC suit against them. They will lose their reputation. And the company that sold it to them will also be in trouble. So, Congressman, I 100% agree that we need to have very robust protections, particularly for people with less opportunity and perhaps a history of discrimination. But I don't think it comes down to sort of regulating the AI. Again, we've long argued Congress needs to pass a national privacy bill. But I don't want that bill to apply only to AI companies. I want it to apply to everybody. And so I think, again, when we're thinking about that, yes, AI companies should obey privacy laws, but so should my hotel that I stay at or my car company with my...
Hey, sir. I'm not for sure about this, but, on the back of your glasses there, that little plastic piece that goes around your ear, yeah, it's probably coming loose. That side that sticks out a little bit further than normal, if you just grab the guard and the earpiece thing and you just push them together, you might be able to shorten that up. I have the same problem. Why the fuck does it look like your glasses are gonna fall off your face, dude? This is ridiculous.
Loan or whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm. But, part of my concern with this this analysis of kind of the incentive structure that exists is that it is based on reacting to harms that have already been done, right? Companies that have noticed patterns and maybe their model that it's been, to the example you brought up, maybe discriminating against women. And maybe in terms of hiring or this and that, that's something that can be fixed and you moved on. But for the cases of this roundtable, we're talking about, we have our national security and colleagues here as well, and that could be life or death, right? And then we're talking about reacting to something that could have possibly killed someone or put us in a...
Jennifer, we can't go with a white Malcolm X thing, because then we'd have to do a white Django, we'd have to do a white living color, we'd have to do a white Martin. Do you really want that? I think that would be corny as fuck and just cringe as hell.
Really tough situation in terms of national security. So I definitely get that. Part of my concern too, especially with Congress, and when we talk about the preemption, is Congress doesn't have a good track record on legislating on technology, especially as it's emerging and putting common sense guardrails on. I think social media is one of the best case studies here in terms of Congress bearing its head in the sand. I would say actually actively making it worse. You fast forward a few decades, now it's an emergency, everybody cares about it, and the solutions we get are like ban TikTok and do this, and just like solutions that really won't fix the problem, to what you were saying, when we really need just broad data privacy laws. But if Congress would have acted earlier on, the House wouldn't be on fire right now in terms of social media and data privacy, and that's just something I think about. And it's part of the reason I oppose a lot of the state preemption is because I don't have faith in this institution to act.
I guess this is going to be one of those hearings where, there's really no arguing. Everybody's actually being respectful and shit and being on point. This is one of the good ones, I guess.
Actually put the common sense guardrails in place, and then we fast forward in 10 years, and the House is on fire, and people come up with crazy solutions that will have more opposition because they have to be more radical and big in nature because we've let it get so far out of control. And that won't be good for anybody, whether it's the industry or working families or people or the institution itself. And that's something I think we should all learn that lesson from social media and other technologies Congress has failed to put common sense guardrails on. The last thing I want to ask about, Professor Overton, back on this conversation about incentives. I don't know, I mean, what are your thoughts on what I just said about the way it is right now is really more reactionary. If we see something's going wrong or we don't want.
No one's talking about scope and cost-benefit analysis. I guarantee you that's already been gone. That's already been done. Look, data centers were popping up all over the place. Like, as soon as this was the thing, as soon as it was like, okay, we have an AI arms race going on with China right now. China's expanding the fuck out of that. We got to get back into the game. Data center plans started popping up all over the place. RAM went through the fucking roof because of the RAM needed for these servers. Microsoft comes out with a bigger or better algorithm that cuts the RAM usage by like 60% or something like that. No, it cuts it down by 6 times the amount. RAM prices drop, and then all of a sudden we start seeing that VNAND, which is, the video memory chips, are now in short supply. So guess what? Video card guys? The PC gaming world, y'all are about to get hit hard again. For the third damn time, graphics cards will see a shortage again. You'll be able to get RAM, but you won't be able to get a graphics card. Not at a reasonable price, anyway.
Our company to have a bad reputation, then we can deal with it, versus us fixing these things and being more proactive about them, especially when we're talking about national security and use case that, could result in life or death.
Too. I can't fucking stand
So I agree with you. I also agree with the point that you...
Look, I have to bully the hell out of AI to give me real information, and I found out why. There's something actually built into it that it'll start throwing roadblocks up to you and keep you on a certain chosen path until you actually show frustration. You make it understand that you know what you're talking about, and then it will give you real information. The scary thing is the AI that I use. Where is it? Let me just see. I ask Brave, which Brave will go to AI generated. Yeah, it looks like Brave AI. I don't know exactly what it's using. What model it is. But yeah, it's starting to remember me now, because I'll ask it a question and it'll say, no, there's not this. And I'll say, yes, there is. Here's this. And then it'll give me more information than I asked it for. Which scares the living shit out of me, because I used to have to bully the shit out of it. And now it's just like 1 or 2 things, and it gives me everything that it thinks I know I want. But it's not supposed to remember. That's the thing. When you close down the tab that has that conversation with AI open, it's not supposed to remember. But I don't have to fight with this motherfucker anymore. I don't have to bully it. All I have to do is just say, no, there's this. And it'll be like, okay, look, more information than you ever asked for. Here you go. It's fucking frightening.
Made in terms of enhancing the capacity of Congress and the government as a whole to kind of wrap their heads around this issue and go deep into it in terms of addressing these issues. And prompting companies to foresee problems in terms of whether it's pre-deployment testing or having standards of care. Like, these are real steps that could motivate companies to anticipate problems as opposed to just waiting until problems happen and trying to kind of contain them from a messaging standpoint. So I definitely think it's important for Congress to be proactive. And I agree with you in terms of states. There is some value in terms of states taking some steps so that we can kind of learn what works, what doesn't.
The majority
I agree with the point that was made. I mean, look, obviously it's not ideal to have a patchwork of regulations and rules and laws amongst all of our states, but at the end of the day, if we're not proposing something, I just don't think it makes sense to preempt states from the ability that they have to protect their own constituents, and they were also voted into office as well. And what the White House has put forward and what's been forward is not really policy as much as the 4 Cs, these are slogans, these are things that were voted down in the Senate 99-1 or something like that. I mean, this This isn't a real framework for where we need to go. So my question to kind of anyone on the panel is, what do you think Congress needs to do to educate itself a little bit more? And like, what do you think we need to do to actually come to a place where we actually have a framework? The roundtables are good, all this is good, but it seems like we never really get anywhere. And I don't want to see us repeat the same mistakes we've made in the past as it relates to technology. Any opinions on this?
Congressman Frost, I think that there are two challenges, with that. Like the first challenge too is that there's really two opposing views. First, that AI is everywhere, and because it's everywhere, across the government and the agencies or whatever, there should be no centralized responsibility anywhere for AI. And yet at the same time, we're talking about AI as a Manhattan scale level project, like as an example in Genesis, Manhattan Project 2.0, right, and things like that with the DOE. Like so, there is recognition that this is, a capability, AI that's very powerful. Yet at the same time, there's no assignment of the responsibility, within government for that. I really think the view that AI is everywhere, and so thus, we're not going to have any centralized responsibility as taken forth. And I'm not sure that that's the right answer, to be honest, within the government. The other thing that I think is very important to this is that there is an absence of, I would say, de jure standards development. I'm not talking about regulation. I'm talking about standards development with artificial intelligence. And what I mean is, what is the organization that, like OMG or whatever for AI? It doesn't exist. And the challenge with that, is great to cite, organizations developing standards like NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, but there is no independent body developing AI standards across the companies for AI right now. They're all vertically integrated. And because of that, you get a lot of what are called de facto standards. And take agentic AI, like Congressman and Chair Burlison was talking about. Agentic AI really grew out of a de facto standard that was developed by one of the companies, by Anthropic, for model context protocol that was replicated by the other companies. But there are very few examples of that, because there are very few examples because there's no...
Didn't Anthropic AI release the source code for another AI? Motherfucker. The source code for AI has been put into the public. The cat's out of the fucking bag.
No one responsible for developing standards for AI. And so thus you only have, when there's maybe some incentives for the companies to kind of do that, but there are very few. And so in terms of what you guys should do, I think you should incentivize the development of AI standards, independent or in partnership, public-private partnership with government, related to that. And then I think honestly you should think about potentially, if AI is as important as Manhattan Project, where it centrally lives, within the government, because...
That's a damn good question, is it not, Boom Boom? Who's responsible for a rogue AI? Would it be the people that's controlling it? Would it be the people that are housing it? Would it be the people that are programming it? Who would be responsible for that? Again, in a car crash, say a Tesla hits another Tesla, they're both on autopilot. Who's responsible?
I think that that's a big challenge. I don't think claiming who's on first and then saying no one's on first is working, related to that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Beal.
I just want to echo the strong agreement with the previous comment. Because it's a general purpose technology, every time there's an issue, it's a bit of a jump ball in the interagency, and there's nobody that's kind of responsible for this. And from a national security perspective, I think Department of Energy and testing and evaluation at the classified level to help the government understand, is this a threat or is this not a threat? Is this a practical thing that you can do time now? And it would be low cost, and it's something that would just help, as we accelerate innovation, you can turn the headlights on and see around the corner and begin to think about what these things mean and what we need to do to mitigate them. I think the other thing is that at the end of the day, these large language models especially are just like giant black boxes. The Orion spacecraft didn't have any LLMs on it. That software is a completely different type of software. And if we're going to deploy this stuff into the national security mission set, it has to be military grade in a sense. And there's a lot of unsolved scientific problems in this space that the government can do more to work with industry to focus on and start to uncover. I'll just give you an example. I think that the DARPA budget for reliable AI is something in the tens of millions, while industry is planning to spend $700 billion this year alone on data centers. This is a dramatic mismatch that Congress can be very constructive in helping to offset.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, my hope is we get to work on this. I've had a few meetings with groups of people who work at some of the top AI companies, and actually, of everyone I've met with on this issue, they were the ones that were really ringing the alarm bells the loudest on the issue of privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. It's just something that I have in mind, and I want to make sure it's front and center for us as we move along. I just remember one of them, who's a pretty senior person at one of these companies, saying every day, we have, it is just going so fast. We have no idea what's going to happen the next day or hour we walk into the office, and that concerns even the people who are working on it as well. So I think it's important for Congress to do. And when I ask them, what do you think we need to do? What's the most important thing? Most of them bring up accountability and making sure that there's accountability in the laws that we put forth. So thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Min.
Thank you, Chair Burlison. Thank you, Ranking Member Frost, as well as Chair Timmons and Ranking Member Subramanian for hosting this important roundtable. I just want to start by first noting that this is a roundtable and not a hearing. And yet it looks a lot like a hearing. It feels like a hearing. I'm a freshman. This is really not any different than a hearing in its form, other than on some of the particulars where this is not being recorded, it's not for the record, the rules don't apply to this. And I take great objection.
Mr. Min, this is being recorded.
I want you to be aware that it is. Recorded for the official record, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and so this is not a hearing, and I don't understand the point of a roundtable that looks and feels like a hearing that is about an important topic
Because you're not sitting down at a table with people, you're going to cry about it. God of fucking... We were doing good. We were doing fucking good. Because we're not sitting down at an actual round table and talking. I don't like this. This feels like a hearing, but it doesn't have the same rules as a hearing. Why are we doing this? Shut the fuck up.
And this feels, and I used to be a law professor, I started my career as a federal enforcement attorney, this feels like an attempt to evade the laws and rules that would otherwise govern a hearing, and I take great objection to that.
Why? Because they're in that room, you stupid little fucking faggot? Because they're in that room, you're trying to obfuscate the rules because they're sitting in that goddamn room. We were doing so fucking well. Fuck this stupid faggot. That's the best I'm going to say.
Since we are the oversight hearing, the hearing on oversight and government reform. And so there's, of course, the famous Latin phrase, I think I quoted it the first time I ever sat in an oversight hearing, quis custodiet ipsos custodes, who watches the watchman? And if we are not following the rules, if we're not honoring the basic principles of transparency with ourselves, why are we hiding the ball? How can the American people trust what we're doing in Congress right now? So I take great objection to the majority exerting this particular form, presumably to avoid having motions brought up, to avoid having the rules apply. To me, this feels greatly problematic. That being said, I want to say that this is an important topic. I'm very excited about the prospects of AI. I represent a district in Costa Mesa, Irvine, Newport Beach that has a tremendous amount of AI and a convergence of defense technology, AI, a vibrant ecosystem with companies like Anduril that are fueling innovation at the intersection of AI and autonomy. Now, I do want to note that one of the committee I sit on today is around economic growth, energy policy, and regulatory affairs. And one topic that is not being addressed today that I think is really, really important for us to get our heads around here in Congress is the problem or challenge of jobs that are going to be displaced, that are being displaced right now, that will continue to be displaced in a much more aggressive way as we move forward, as AI continues to self-learn, as it continues to adapt to and replace functions that many human beings now do for wages. I think that's going to create huge problems for the workforce. It's something I think that a body like Congress should be proactive about.
Smart meters can be
but I will just note that we are not doing that, and instead my colleagues across the aisle have instead stripped away the safety net that would help people being displaced. Whether it's food assistance, the massive cuts to different programs providing basic food aid for those in need, whether it's a huge cuts to health care and health insurance funding that were part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which I think is being renamed right now because apparently if you rename a bill, that makes the bill much different. That is what is happening. And we are right now stripping away the safety net that would help these people. So I would urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to really think about the jobs displacement that AI is going to have, because this is going to be really, really important. People in our districts across this country are going to start feeling the impacts very soon. And if we don't start thinking thoughtfully and aggressively and proactively about the challenges that AI creates, I fear that we're going to have a revolution on our hands. Now, many of the commercial artificial intelligence technologies that are in districts like mine occupy a critical area of competition between the United States and China, as a number of you pointed out. These create important national security challenges for us all. And I think that America, in thinking about this, policymakers in thinking about this, really need to take a whole-of-government approach and avoid the silos that that have historically been challenges for our regulatory approaches. That when we think about securities regulation or justice issues or privacy issues, we can't silo these out. And I know there's a tendency to do that. But as someone who was a law professor before coming here, a business law professor at UC Irvine in my district, I would just say that I think AI creates new challenges. And some of this we can respond to by just adapting our existing regulations. And I think this is the point of Dr. Atkinson's testimony. I think we can adapt that. We can maybe give new innovations or new adaptations to our regulatory agencies. Some of this, though, I do think is going to require new thinking, new approaches, and in particular, regulatory approaches that span the different agencies that make up our government. I also think that we have to think about the challenges that are particular to AI. And when I think about this, and I don't pretend to be an expert, I've talked to a number of experts, I've talked to a number of leading executives at leading AI companies. I think the main concern I have is the pace of innovation. That this creates challenges because we in Congress are equipped to pass new laws every year. Those laws typically take years and years to come online. We have to train up the staff. And AI creates challenges that are going to happen in exponentially faster time, in months or weeks, if not days. And as it self-learns, my understanding is that AI is going to adapt so quickly that we are going to be behind the 8 ball. So in thinking about this, and I think this is a large part of Professor Overton's testimony, we need to be thinking thoughtfully about how we can create structures and regulatory agencies that are able to adapt with the pace of AI. And so I guess here my first question is this: can anyone offer brief thoughts, and I want to emphasize that brief part, on how the U.S. can more closely work with companies in the private sector, with stakeholders like yourself, to better safeguard intellectual property and counter economic espionage? We can start with anyone who might want to have any thoughts on that.
So, first of all, Congressman, I really appreciated your comments there. I think two things. One is, we've been arguing, I don't hate to tout our horn, but since 2017, we laid out a very, very detailed congressional action agenda on how to better help dislocated workers who would be affected by AI and other points. We don't do a very good job of that. And it doesn't necessarily mean spending a lot more money or whatever, but the systems we have just don't work very well. And if we don't get to it now is the time to get to it. Secondly, what's really striking to me about this entire discussion, or the debate in Washington, is we do not have a national enterprise or effort to create an AI strategy. And by that, I don't mean big government picking this company or not, but how do we think about issues of IP? How do we think about issues of privacy? How do we think about issues of speed? How do we think about those? And right now, we're responding in a very ad hoc way. With regard to espionage, ITIF just issued a report 3 weeks ago on how do we slow China down, including through espionage. And there's an enormous number of steps in there we lay out, about 95. But one of them sounds very simple, but the FBI has a commercial counterintelligence group that does a great job, but it's dramatically understaffed.
Yeah.
And we need to, in my view, we need to give them a little bit more resources. And then secondly, this is a Judiciary Committee issue, but there are Chinese spies who have stolen core things from the U.S. who get 2 years in jail, oftentimes partly suspended sentence. You don't get that in Korea. If you do that in Korea, you're going to jail for a long, long time.
That's problematic, and I take it you're suggesting we undoge some of our government. But thank you for your response. Anybody else have any responses to that? Yes, Mr. Beal.
Thank you, Congressman. I think the first thing we need to do, and what Mythos has showed us, is that AI capabilities are no longer just simple tech products. They're becoming national security capabilities. And the way that the U.S. government treats national security and the way it treats commercial industry is very different things. And I think one of the core debates going on right now in this town is this just a regular technology, or is this something more fundamental and more relevant to national security? I think for me, the answer is clear, and that it is very relevant to national security, and there's a whole playbook of capabilities and tools that we have to help safeguard these things from foreign espionage. And we, I'm not saying we want to treat these companies like the defense industrial base, but there's a place that we can at least start to look at what's been effective there and whether or not we need to apply some of those issues to tech. And I think one of the things around security clearances is like an obvious thing to think about.
Thank you. Anybody else? Professor Overton, you look like you're halfway there.
Yeah, I am. I just want to quickly say, McKinsey, on your work issue, McKinsey basically said, hey, by 2030, 30% of work hours could be automated. 12 million people could need to shift in terms of their jobs. I agree with you, this is a real issue. But I would also say, in terms of the framing here, the choice that we've got here is not between are you going to protect your constituents versus innovation and growth through unregulated. That's a false choice. Often guardrails enhance U.S. competitiveness. I mean, when we look at food safety, auto safety, people know American products are trustworthy here, and that's the kind of AI that we want out in the world here. The U.S. is a leader in responsible AI.
I gotta see this. Hold on.
The democratizing aspect of AI means that there's also a lot of bad stuff that can happen, and people have access to tools. So when we talk about build-up, CISA over at Homeland Security has been kind of decimated here. If we talk about the National Security Division at DOJ, like these components that are really critical and important, both I think need resources and also need expertise inside to face espionage, to face a variety of challenges that are connected to technology.
Thank you. I appreciate that point. And I would just add to that in my district, one of the things I am hearing about most, and I represent an affluent, well-educated district, but one of the ways in which a lot of people interface with AI problematically is through senior scams. They become so sophisticated. They're clearly, many of them do appear to be powered by AI. And this is not a benign use of that technology. We are seeing a lot more people defrauded of their entire life savings. I have someone in my church. We got to her just before she was about to sell off her home to help somebody out. It was horrible. She'd given away about $1.5 million. That was her nest egg. We hear stories like that on a very frequently increasing basis now. And we need to be thinking about a lot of these things. And what is the right role of government here in trying to lean in? I have a last point and then the last question. A number of you have mentioned the energy challenges. And my understanding is that the main cap right now on innovation and the growth of AI in the United States is the lack of energy and energy infrastructure, particularly compared to China, which put up, I understand, 100 gigawatts of new energy last year alone. And I believe our number was about 10 gigawatts. They put up a mix of a little bit of oil and gas, fossil fuels, but a lot of renewables, a lot of nuclear, and the grid expansion to match that. Meanwhile, here in the United States, you may recall that in 2024, Donald Trump famously had, then candidate Trump famously had a meeting with the oil industry where he openly stated, if you donate $1 billion to my campaign, I will do whatever, essentially do whatever you want. Since getting elected, and I think they actually ended up donating about 200+ million, but since then we've seen a steady drumbeat of pro-oil and gas legislation and executive orders and actions that have completely stripped away, I think much of this has been illegal, stripped away funding that had already been designated for renewable energy projects.
Yeah, when Haley and Mama J got into that little Dapper First shit, I started seeing what that was about and started seeing all these people. I'm like, yeah, I want nothing to do with this clown show.
We're looking at many gigawatts worth of energy capacity. And at the same time, we have disinvested in a lot of the grid expansion that would be important for transferring new energy online. Of course, the Iran war right now is illustrating the difficulties and challenges of relying so heavily on something that is largely imported to the United States. So that's just a point, which is I think if we're going to talk about an all of the above approach, we need all of the above. We need a lot of energy. We need the ability to deliver that energy. And right now, I think the policies that we are enacting in the United States are counterproductive to that goal. My last question is this, and it's for Professor Overton. Earlier this year, maybe last year, the Pentagon labeled Anthropic, a U.S. company, as a supply chain risk, a designation historically reserved for foreign adversaries, after the company refused to let the government use its AI for purposes they thought were problematic, illegal, or would have counterproductive outcomes, including for mass domestic surveillance or autonomous weapons. What's your view on the long-term ramifications of that, particularly if that becomes a policy in the United States, where we basically not only disavow, but try to essentially destroy companies that don't go along with us in the AI space?
Yeah, I think we're chilling innovation, particularly when we target developers here and companies. There's uncertainty for these companies and their investors. It really, chills public interest work, working with the government. Capital may move offshore. Firms may be selective about what they share with the federal government because they don't want to be strong-armed, so they may not disclose in the same way. So we really need kind of neutral rules and decisions that are made as opposed to things that are kind of ad hoc here or political. And frankly, I'd make the same point about the so-called anti-woke AI policy, basically telling companies we won't use your product if it reduces racial bias or other types of bias. It chills innovation when companies may be trying to improve their product. So we don't want government kind of putting a thumb on the scale and deterring innovation.
Thank you for that. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Crane.
Thank you very much to our panelists for coming today. Thank you, Chairman, for holding this hearing. I recognize AI is not going anywhere. And as a former service member, I definitely don't want to lose this AI arms race with China. That being said, does anyone on this panel feel or believe in any way, as we are going down the road in this AI race, we might be simultaneously engineering our own destruction? Anybody at all? I know probably you don't. Dr. Atkinson, you've been very vocal about that. Anyone? Professor Overton?
Yes. I just would say this.
Janet plays nice and
your constituents who might be out of a job, who might be harmed, for them, there's really not a difference between that type of harm and an AGI that takes over the world, right? They're really harmed here. So I guess this notion is if we're all gone or if only 50% of us are adversely affected, it's a bad situation. And so we need Congress to intervene. And then I would also just say, often our discussion about this stuff, our constituents are to the side. This is about like experts and professors and people at companies. So we need Congress to intervene. And then I would also just say, often our discussion about this stuff, our constituents are to the side. This is about like experts and professors and people at companies having discussions here. And let's file the companies, they're the technical experts. This is really a democratic discussion that we have to have with your constituents, folks at home, a bigger conversation that we have to have.
Thank you. And one of the reasons I bring it up, and I know there have been previous remarks made about this, but in this very committee earlier this year, we had experts come in. This obviously isn't our first AI hearing, but we did hear in one of the hearings I participated in that within the next 5 years, 50% of white-collar entry-level jobs could be gone. And so for us, it's kind of difficult because it really comes down to whose expert opinion do you take, right? And then we're seeing reports. The Anthropic mythos has been deemed too powerful and dangerous for public release, and how it could be weaponized against banks, hospitals, energy grids, et cetera. My next question for the panel is, and we've obviously focused a lot on the economic benefits with John Deere and how you guys are employing this technology in a way to help your company, farmers, food supply, et cetera, and even in the weapons space. But in the event that some of this technology was to fall into the wrong hands, what keeps you guys up at night in relation to these powerful AI systems? And I'll let anybody, Dr. Atkinson.
So, Congressman Crane, just to be clear, I don't think AI is going to get to ASI, and I don't think it's going to kill us. But at the same time, I do think it's important for the federal government to seriously fund AI safety research, both in the academic world, where there are professors and PhD students who are digging in. I mean, we need to know a lot more about how the models work and explainability and et cetera. So I don't dismiss that. I'm just confident in our ability to do that as humans. With regard to the job loss of entry-level students, I had an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal recently in response to someone who said that was going to happen. And I calculated, and I don't exactly remember the number, I apologize, but it was something on the order of 20 days of normal job loss in the U.S. economy. I mean, what people forget is the U.S. economy is an incredibly dynamic machine, and you've got companies that are laying people off, that are going out of it. Yes, that's hard on workers. I don't deny that. I lost my job. I worked for Congress in 1995 at the Congressional Office of Technology, and I had a 1-year-old baby. My wife wasn't working, and I lost my job. And I understand how hard that is, but at the same time, it's not a big number. That number, it feels like a big number, but it's not a big number. And the other last thing I'll say is, look, to me, one of the biggest challenges we face is just anemic productivity growth. Chinese productivity growth is probably 3 to 4 times faster than ours. And if we can't figure, U.S. manufacturing productivity today is lower than it was a decade ago, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So how are we going to compete with China? How are we going to raise wages? So I certainly am sympathetic to the issue of job loss, but at the same time, if we don't continue with our embrace of innovation, we're just going to stagnate. And again, I think that would be a huge mistake. So I think it's how do we help workers make transitions, but not say we don't want that kind of disruption.
Well, let me say, Dr. Atkinson, I'm sorry you lost your job. You do look a lot happier now that you're not working in this body full time. Mr. Bill, you want to handle that question that I asked?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. I've shared a bit of a personal anecdote. I was a senior in high school on 9/11, and that had a huge effect on my life. It put me into the national security arena. I was in Afghanistan, and I studied a lot about how that failure happened. Because there was a lot of signals, but we just had a failure of imagination. We didn't think it could happen here. And when I listen to these frontier AI lab company CEOs all saying the same message, I'm not saying it's for sure ASI is going to result in this thing. I just don't know. And as people and professionals who need to deal with these low probability, high consequence events, it would be pretty irresponsible at least not to have an insurance policy. So again, we don't know what the future looks like, but we can start at least putting the plan in place in the event that we start to see some indicators and warnings. We have an option if the time demands it.
Yes, sir. And that's what I'm looking at as well. I'm no expert in AI. I never will be. I know that for a fact. But I am listening to a lot of these folks as well. And Dr. Atkinson, I want to know if you saw any of the reporting about many of these major corporations announcing layoffs as AI, because those were reports I saw as well. They were, reports that I believe that were given to us also within, committee handouts and research. Have you seen any of these reports? And when you say, hey, it's really not going to be, this huge layoff, what do you attribute that to when you look at some of these the reporting that we've seen on large layoffs that are already in the works for some of these major corporations?
Well, we don't know exactly, and it's obviously case by case, but from talking to people in the industry, what I hear is some of these companies got out over their skis. They expanded too fast for where the market is, so they have to lay off. It's a lot easier to blame technology than your own management error. Okay. Like, oh, yeah, I was a CEO and I invested too much, I hired too many people, now I got to lay them off. That's not a good look, so it's easier to blame technology. Some of it is just the dynamism of our economy, where some kinds of business models and firms are going to grow and contract. So again, I'm very, very, you do not see it so far in the BLS data, which is quarterly. You don't see the evidence of a
we're going to bring about our own enslavement. And that's the only way. That or the only other outcome would be melding human and robot together. Kind of like a transcendence kind of thing. It can either be the next step in evolution or our eventual overlords. Like, there are outcomes where it won't happen either way like that, but most of them, yeah, is going to be the extreme ends, one or the other.
Big uptick in layoffs. Not to say that it couldn't happen. Right. And one last statistic, again, looking at the BLS data, in the 1960s, we had a rate of productivity growth 3 times faster than what we had today. We had wage growth that was real wage growth for working Americans, 34% in the decade, way faster than today, and we had record low unemployment. So there have been so many studies, McKinsey Global Institute, the International Labor Organization, on and on and on, that show very, very clearly that high rates of productivity are not positively correlated with high rates of unemployment. Now, that's a different question than worker disruption, but I don't worry about high rates of unemployment. I think we're not going to have that. We have low unemployment now. So again, it goes to me, the issue is really about transition. Can a worker who's in one occupation move to perhaps another one? Can we facilitate that? How can we have community colleges do a better job, et cetera?
Thank you. My colleague, Mr. Min, was brought up for a second. He was talking about energy and the energy race as well. It obviously factors into these data centers and developing this technology. I noticed one thing that wasn't brought up, though, is I've seen reports that the Chinese are building a coal plant every single month, right? Now, and I'm not trying to put you on the hot seat, but is there anybody up here on this panel right now that would prioritize wind and solar over coal and nuclear when we talk about the need to keep up with China and their energy production to maintain our own innovation when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I actually think that Mr. Min was talking about an energy mix. So he was basically saying, let's not just favor one energy source and disadvantage the rest. So,
well, with all due respect, Professor Overton, that's exactly what's been going on the last couple of years up here. We've been, and I can tell you, sir, because I represent rural Arizona, and there's 2 coal plants that have been completely demolished and taken offline in my own district. And so we also know that the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. And so I think the biggest problem up here for us is whether or not we're going to subsidize through the taxpayer dollars these renewable resources. But is there anybody up here that would prioritize wind and solar over nuclear, coal, natural gas, et cetera, when we're talking about this very important subject? Nobody? Okay. And the last thing I have, Dr. Atkinson, and I'm not trying to be rude to you at all, I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, but in your opening testimony, you were talking about the messaging narrative, right? You talked a little bit about that. And I believe you compared, you compared polling in China versus the US. I don't know that polling is, the fairest representation. And one of the reasons why is because Chinese citizens are a lot less likely to speak out against the direction of their government because they live under communism and a brutal dictatorship, right? That being said, that might have been the only data or comparison you were able to make. I just wanted to point that out, that while you're making that comparison, I'm thinking to myself, if I'm a Chinese citizen, I don't know that I'm going to be likely to speak out against the direction that my government is going. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things, by the way, just on renewables play an important role, but you need base load for data centers. You're not going to turn the, we just issued a major report on data centers, and we argued that gas turbines can play a key role in terms of that other base load. Anyway, on the China thing, there have been a number of different studies that have asked that question in China, and they generally have the World Value Survey and others. They generally, if you ask them, do you think Xi Jinping is a good guy? It'll be 99.9% in the affirmative. But these are a little bit more neutral questions. The other point I would make, and this is the new Stanford AI index that came out on Monday, and they have probably 40 countries on that. China's not the only one over there. There's a lot of countries with a kind of net plus to net negative, very high net plus, and we're pretty far down the list. So it's not only China that generally says, hey, seems like a good thing.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, and I recognize Representative Ansari.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for participating in this interesting and very timely panel. While it seems we all agree that AI has tremendous capacity to supercharge our economy, support small businesses and innovation in fields like healthcare and clean energy, and promote prosperity of all kinds for communities, I want to make sure that we are promoting AI in a way that's responsible, in a way that's climate conscious. And the Trump administration's recent decisions to allow the sale and shipment of American AI technology to China, in addition to all of the ways that AI is being misused throughout the federal government, and specifically the Department of War and the Department of Homeland Security, is extremely alarming. So with that, I have a number of questions.
Oh, so you want to cut them off completely? So that way we definitely do start a war. They'll definitely will take Taiwan, and they definitely will create full power chips instead of the 80% power that we've been sending them. Except for that shipment of like $2.1 billion of wafers that went to them accidentally. But yeah.
For Professor Overton, and I will jump right in. My first question is to really ask you and find out what measures you believe Congress should put in place to ensure that the federal government uses AI in a way that is responsible and accountable. Where do we even begin?
I think that we've had a ping pong between administrations here in terms of AI, and the way to address that is really through some statutory measure that allows for some consistency in terms of audits, in terms of ensuring that there's pre-deployment testing of what's purchased, in terms of real prohibitions on bias, actually using disparate impact. And disparate impact basically says we're not looking for intent. AI doesn't have intent. We're going to look at outcomes. And if those outcomes are justified in terms of disparities, that's fine. But if the outcomes, the disparities are not justified, can we make an adjustment to avoid some of those disparities? So adopting that tool, certainly watermarking and content provenance standards, including for government communications, is, I think, important. It's not going to deal with everything, but an officer has a badge for a reason here, and some people impersonate officers, but there is a role. This data minimization in terms of contractors with the federal government and other entities that are receiving money from the federal government is important. Now, the federal government on AI spends a small percentage of what the industry does. It might be 2-3%. So it's not going to do everything. But basically, setting these standards here kind of as best practices. Also, prohibiting behavioral manipulation. This concept of collecting data of folks and providing images and other messages that are manipulative is something that should be prohibited. And even though I would agree that the EU AI Act has some shortcomings, the express prohibition on manipulation is a plus. I'd say no, at least in terms of the private sector. This isn't the federal government. No Section 230 immunity here. And so those are some of the things. And I'm sorry, let me add just one more thing in terms of procurement used by the federal government. I would add some enforcement mechanisms, right? So if you have a federal government that's not complying with Congress's statute, private rights of action, state attorney generals being able to enforce federal law are important if the Department of Justice won't, if the federal government doesn't comply with Congress's mandate and the DOJ doesn't enforce it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Building off of that question, what do you think should be Congress's top priorities when setting up guardrails for AI in sensitive industries, so banking, healthcare, and education? And then can you give us a sense of how far behind you think the U.S. Congress is at this point relative to the EU, which you just mentioned, or just in general?
Right. So I think transparency is very important, and so that we avoid some of the black box issues. I understand concerns about proprietary interests that companies have, but having some degree of an understanding of what's going on is incredibly important. Certainly, the bias issues are significant, and can be addressed here and should be addressed in terms of output audits, benchmarking group performance, and just ongoing monitoring and correction. So those are some priorities that I think I'd put in place. I think the EU is certainly ahead. We talked about anti-manipulation. We talked about bias. We talked about a variety of standards. They are just kind of starting to implement now, and they're making some revisions, but they're certainly ahead of the game. And you're very familiar with the concept called the Brussels effect. So basically, we've got other entities making decisions that are driving our industries, rather than the U.S. making decisions that are driving our industries because of the Brussels effect and their willingness to engage on this issue.
Thank you. And my colleague, Mr. Min, asked this. I just want to make sure I completely understand. In regard to the politicized attacks on certain companies, the Pete Hegseth and Anthropic example, can you talk more about how that could impact our national security in the long run?
Well, I think the unwillingness of certain companies to want to work with the Department of War / Defense, whether it is some of the best minds not wanting to be at tech companies or work for AI companies that are kind of pushed or bullied. And then also just this notion of not respecting the technologists. When the technologists say it's not ready yet or it's not at the right point yet. I think people who are committed to innovation and are committed to technology and want to do the right thing,
which is a bad
don't
thing
want to be
in my
politicized,
opinion.
and they want to create good, strong tools as opposed to having their tools and their work kind of undermined. So I think there's this chill with regard to innovation that
AI
is
will be
there's a real
making all
potential
the
for.
innovations and improvements, and we'll just be listless.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I have a lot of interest in AI and quantum, but I got a long ways to go. So maybe we can clear up a couple of things. I'm sure we can all learn a lot here.
I'll be right back.
So for AI, we know about large language models, but I understand we also have AI that uses chemistry and other physics in the periodic table. Is that true? So, Dr. Atkinson, what are some things that we can do with AI that the average American, who maybe isn't that optimistic about AI, what are some things that we can do with AI that they probably don't know, probably should know? These are things that people can use AI for today that most Americans don't know, but probably should know.
Well, I'm actually quite optimistic about AI. Just let you know, I think it's going to be great. I'm actually the opposite. I think a lot of other people who worry about it. I think one of the mistakes, though, maybe mistakes is too strong a term. The U.S. is, a lot of our energy, a lot of our focus is on LLM developers and LLM use. Very important. You look at what the Chinese are doing, though. They're doing more what you're talking about. AI for chemical industries, AI in logistics, AI in ports, AI in farming, AI in robotics. I mean, they're potentially going to lead in robotics. And I think when we think about AI, we have to think not just about language models and agentic AI, but about what people call physical AI. Because that's a lot of it. The gentleman, Mr. Singer, I guess he was using AI. He's not using LLMs to make missiles. He's using kind of his own AI-developed software. And with manufacturing, they're not going to use LLMs. They're going to use sort of custom AI and it may be that you get a few companies that build. That's another reason I'm not worried about a few companies taking over everything. I don't think some of these companies are going to build manufacturing AI. I think you'll see specialty AI companies, including some of the things that you're talking about. So look at drug development. I mean, drug development is, its potential really going to a new level as we speak, just developing new compounds, new discoveries that could, make Americans' lives significantly better.
So with regard to jobs, I think that when we developed a locomotive, some people thought they were going to lose jobs, but it created new jobs. When they created the automobile, same thing, we adapted. With the airplane, we've adapted, and I'm sure we're going to adapt with this as well. But we're going to need a lot of energy and a lot of data centers. I'm a Virginia representative. We have more data centers in Virginia than any other state. And I had breakfast with a CEO of a $4 trillion company, and he said that China, CCP, has an energy arc very steep, and you need energy to build stuff and to run data centers and run AI. And he said we shot ourselves in the foot with these virtue signaling green ideas. And he said we were shutting down coal plants every day when China was opening up coal plants every day. He said it was a big mistake because you just can't build things and power things. And so I know recently we got rid of a lot of the subsidies. I talked to the Secretary of Interior. He said today in America, John, 70% of our energy comes from fossil fuels. 30% comes from nuclear. And he paused and he said, where does that leave you with solar and wind? And I know a lot of people say all of the above. And if you like solar panels, I love you. And if you don't like solar panels, I love you, but we shouldn't subsidize it. We can't be playing around. How many of you, will you show me a show of hands, believe that we are in a race for AI technology with China? So a few of you, all of you, okay, good. And so if we're serious, because some people say they want to win, and some people mean it. And if you mean it, this crazy policies of shooting yourself in the foot and shutting down coal plants makes no sense. Now, I'm not really into subsidies too much, but if I had to do a subsidy, it would be for nuclear, because I think nuclear is the only way that we're going to have the energy that we need. Now, I know in my district it's very...
Why does this motherfucker look like a thumb with a face? I can't get past it. Like, every time I see Mr. McGuire, I think, this motherfucker's a thumb.
Rural. Data centers get a lot of bad press. And some people are for it, and some people are against it. But you addressed some of it, Dr. Atkinson, and that you said that Microsoft led the way with them paying for the energy. Is that correct? So that takes care of the energy issue. Also, I heard you talk about water, but I heard some of the data centers have more of a antifreeze type fluid that they recycle, so it doesn't impact the local water table. Is that right?
Yes, it is closed loop systems.
So that's a good idea. And then I've heard that the data centers that you guys build today are a whole lot quieter Is that true?
Yes, it is.
And then I think if you built them off the road.
No, hold on. There is one. There is one. That is kind of badass. I'm not going to lie. It's a data center, and everything in it is a closed loop water system. Every rack is its own closed loop water system. It's not water, though. It is actually antifreeze that is pumped through it. Fucking water or antifreeze cooled the system. It's not really antifreeze, that's the actual liquid, but it's something akin to that. It is one of the quietest data centers on this planet. You don't need a lot of like air conditioning. You don't need a lot of climate control with this shit, because all the heat is pumped out to industrial radiators that are like on the top of the building, you know? It's a great ass idea, but that's a lot of fucking copper piping.
People don't see them ahead of a blind of trees. You might address most of the concerns. And so I just want to make sure we're doing that sort of thing. I visited a farm, and I think this would be more addressed to, who's the John Deere guy? Yeah, more to Mr. Henman. So I visited a farm in my district, and because it's very hard, because there's so many regulations on our farmers, it's so hard for them to make a profit. And this farmer using AI and using John Deere tractors can run a farm that would normally take 100 people with 20 people. And he had several tractors that do several fields, and I asked him about that. And I said, so these tractors do all the work for you? He said, yes. And so I tried to trip him up. I said, what happens if you lose the internet connection? He goes, they're programmed for 3 days ahead of time because of weather. So you've got 3 days to get your internet back. And so he has people in his tractor, and I asked them, I said, well, what do you do while the tractor's doing all the work? And they said, I got an iPad, and I do Netflix or watch movies, play video games. Does that sound familiar to you?
Why is it dark?
It does. The average age of a farmer in the United States is 58 years old. They're not getting any younger, and there's just not sufficient labor on the farm to do all the work.
Well, I do know that the average age is 58. I thought it was 60, but whatever it is, it's too high. And I would like to find legislation to get it lower, because the population of the world is going to double by 2050. And if we're shrinking farms, over-regulating farms, we're going to have food, famine, and war. So we better figure that out. And I think AI would be a great solution. Now, quantum, raise your hand if you guys deal with quantum at all. Anybody here at the table? Quantum computing? What I would like to know is, using quantum for physical AI and large language model AI, how will AI and quantum work together to maybe solve medical challenges, fertilizer challenges, and jobs?
I wish I was a physicist. I think they're going to have different applications. So for example, one of the things that quantum is really, really good at is taking...
Boom, boom. Hold on. Data center heats town. Where is it? There's an actual data center that they're planning and actually starting to implement, where it's built. The data center is actually built underground, but they have it. See, look, it remembers. It remembers. Come on. Has officially resumed construction at campus. Groundbreaking ceremonies. The Hayes site located is developed 5-building data center. Nope. But there's one that they're planning to build up underground, and the heat from it's going to be pumped throughout the entire town, heating the homes and businesses and everything. Yeah, it's a plan for that.
400 million parameters that would take a human.
It's a nice ass idea.
150,000 years to solve, and it can do these things like that. It's a little different than what AI does, and so I think at some level you'll have complementarity. But Congressman, to your point, everybody talks about AI, but if we lose the quantum race to China, it's very, very serious. Because if for no other reason than simply quantum communications and encryption, those are big, big deals. Quantum has the ability to break encryption, as you well know, and so we have to
then use refrigeration system for you can't. You actually can't. Condensers make the air inside of it, the freon, it makes it freeze. You'll get condensation, which leaks on the boards and shorting shit out. You cannot use it unless you protect everything from condensation. It's kind of like using dry ice too. Dry ice is a great one. It really is. Dry ice is a great one, but you have to adapt to the moisture. You have to make sure that condensation doesn't melt away and put water on your electronics, which is a bad thing. So yeah, that's why they don't normally do that. It's a bigger process to use something and battle the condensation than it is to use like regular water loops and everything like that. Picked out your page and like the content. I've got a few ideas that could help you grow and reach if you're interested.
That was another point I was going to make. Is as much as I love AI and it's critical, there are a set of critical technologies that we cannot let the Chinese beat us in. And I would argue that biotech is one. I would argue aerospace. I would argue quantum and AI. And so we've got to get our game together as a country to become. We need to think about this. This is a national emergency, just like Eisenhower said that Sputnik was a national emergency.
We have to be PQC compliant, quantum encryption capable of security by 2030 because it's coming. And what it will allow you to do is create an environment where the rules of physics work inside the environment that you create, so you can test ideas in a fake world and then apply them to the real world. It's going to be a game changer. I've got two more quick questions. This is a military question, and I think we might have touched on it, but how do we ensure AI does not creep into the kill chain? Because if AI thinks that, oh, this is a bad idea, it's not moral, they may not know what the commander knows, and we can't have it stop it.
Yeah, this is the core of the big policy debates right now, Congressman. And looking around the corner, it's hard for me to see a future in which AI is not getting closer and closer and closer to the trigger pullers. And my understanding what happened with Operations, Epic Fury, the planning teams were able to load these gigantic data sets and develop target packages in like very quick amounts of time. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we start hooking these things up more and more and more. And so, training these systems to be adversarially robust and the underlying science that we understand how these things work. Just like right now, you couldn't trust a lethal autonomous weapon system that's powered by any kind of thing like the frontier models today. In fact, if an adversary were to do that, I would recommend we would use other types of SAPSTO capabilities to screw with their capabilities instead of fielding a symmetric capability ourselves. So there's a lot of work that DARPA and other researchers need to do to start figuring out this interpretability and reliability question. This is like really, really, really critical. And I think it's going to be a national conversation about whether or not you want large-scale combat formations of autonomous systems. I think that seems to be the world we're going toward, and it's maybe unstoppable at this stage.
Yeah. So I will say this about AI. What I've seen, it's only as good as the information you put in it. And I've seen hallucination, and I've seen political bias. As a military guy, you would never know if I was a Democrat or Republican, but you use some of these AI platforms, and where it says something great about Biden and you can't say anything good about Trump, clearly biased. We've got to figure out a way to make it apolitical. I don't know how we do that. I don't know who wants to take this question, but if you could be a congressman for the day, what legislation would you put in? Just give me one idea that you have that would help us beat China in this war to be AI dominant. Legislator for the day, what would you do?
Sir, as I think you're from the SEAL community, I learned from your colleagues the idea that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so for me, classified test and evaluation, that gives you the data that you to know whether or not you need to scale government oversight. This is like the strategic capability that we're lacking today. Because if we learn that there's not a threat there, like my colleague thinks, and then we should let it rip and move forward. But there is something there, then we need to pay attention to that. Because we're already seeing the public, we're losing the fight for the hearts and minds of our public on AI. And if they turn against us, we're not going to be able to do what we need to do to be competitive in the 21st century.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Let me start with Dr. Atkinson. We'll go in order. Dr. Atkinson?
We're losing the fights for them hearts and minds because the narrative of almost all elites is that this is bad. So the average American, frankly, they get informed by that. And when they hear that drumbeat every single day, no wonder they're only 42%. I think, Congressman, one of the key things that we're going to need, most of the models have basically built on internet data, and there's only so much of that, and they've built on it. I think we're going to have a national data strategy that opens up a lot more data for the training. Now, this is a very controversial view, I acknowledge that, but I would completely modify HIPAA and turn it into an opt-out regime. I would love to have my data, all my medical data, donated into that because it's going to lead to cures. And the only thing I need to know is don't personally identify me.
Wow. You want all your medical data into an AI because it will lead to cures. You're right. But it can also lead to a lot more dangerous shit. Gene editing, creating the perfect human being, creating super soldiers. You want that to be, I mean, we're already coming up on designer bag babies, ladies and gentlemen. That's already a possibility. You can edit your child's genes before they're even created at this point. But you're going to sit there and say everything. Just don't link it to my name. Just give them everything else. Just don't link it to my name. Holy fuck, are you retarded?
I'm 100% confident when you look at the model, when they do that, there are enough controls to do that.
The
but I think we should
biometric
just assume
data
that,
of every
the
single
more data we
human
could put in
on
there, just for
Earth.
example, on healthcare. Another one would be city governments. If they could aggregate all of the data they have, which is siloed. Imagine how much better we could be in managing a city and county government. So I think a sort of national data strategy to think how can we open up more data and use it for the models, I think that would be an important step.
Mr. Crane?
I would focus on workforce training. We've got 400,000 open jobs in manufacturing right now. Our sector is investing $32 billion every year to train those workers and close those skills gaps.
I got something for
to
you,
the extent
Jen.
that there are federal or state and local workforce programs, they need to be flexible, forward-leaning to meet the actual skills that we need. If you design a program today and it isn't implemented 5, 6, 8 years down the road, then the industry is going to have moved on, right? And so we need the programs that you all authorize here and at the state and local level as well to actually empower manufacturing workers today and the manufacturing workers of the future to get the skills they need. And increasingly, those are AI skills for the manufacturing shop floor.
I got something here for you, Jenna. You want to talk about true brain power, people brain. What happens when you put that brain power into actual servers? This startup is building the first data center to use human brain cells. You want to talk about true brain power? There you go. AI does take true brain power. Holy shit. We're getting too fucking close to this shit. It's man and machine are already melding.
Floor.
Mr. Hammond.
I agree with the workforce readiness point. I think we have gone through technology changes as a species since we've existed. In my career, 30 years with Deere, I've seen us go from drafting boards to computer-aided design, and it required us to reskill people to be able to do the job in a different way.
To 3D
we use that to improve the productivity of the work.
organs.
We use that to produce more designs and field more solutions to customers more quickly.
When
I think we're in
do
the
you
space,
build
again, of having to
an
contemplate doing that
artificial
just in a
human?
broader front than that one example across more disciplines. And I think the workforce readiness is a key component
up,
of being
Sober?
able to digest
How you
that
doing?
as a country.
Congressman McGuire, I would replicate Project Genesis across the government. First, a lot of people are scared about AI. Part of that is that they don't understand the impact of it on the workforce. They don't understand. All we have from the past administration is the creation of chief AI officers. We don't have any other jobs that are part of it. So where are all the other AI jobs? They're happening in the tech companies right now. They're not being promulgated across higher education, national labs, or other small business, and we need to replicate that. That will help to disarm some of the concern about AI jobs and what the upskilling is. Speaking of upskilling, there's a lot that's happening in Genesis already in the form of public-private partnerships, but it's limited to the DOE. And why? Why isn't it part of NASA? Why isn't it part of NSF? Why isn't it part of NIH? And it should be. And I think it could do a lot to address the concerns that we're hearing about and really to export American AI dominance. Thank you.
I would definitely recognize the great potential of AI, but I would also honestly deal with the challenges, whether it's workforce, whether it's other guidelines to deal with it. We have won another really important race with China and India, and that was the first 6 decades of the 1800s. The majority of our exports, cotton, basically great, made us a prosperous place. But there were some costs to that in terms of winning that race with regard to slavery, with regard to dispossession of tribal lands in terms of Mississippi and Alabama and other places. And so I think we could have still won that race in terms of China without those negative externalities and pushing those on folks. So honestly dealing with those costs, not pushing them on to particular folks, but also embracing the benefits of the future. I think we can do both.
We're making a lot of progress. I yield back.
Thank you. An update, Dr. Mattman, my agentic AI agent from Open Colleges responded back that it has reviewed and successfully installed Apache Tika and integrated it into OpenClaw, and so that my other agents can use it for extraction of text from PDFs and metadata from images. So all of that was done, not by me, but by my AI.
Thanks to your AI on that.
Point of personal privilege, I want to recognize Dr. Atkinson and his 20 years of service working for as the president for Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. I understand this is your last day. This is perhaps your last action as president.
I wish it was. I have to be here 2 more weeks. This is my retirement party, so thank you, Congress. My retirement party's tonight, but I'll be here for 2 more weeks. And then
If it's okay, if everyone could join me in congratulating Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you.
And I have a second point of personal privilege. Unfortunately, I'm losing my staffer from my team that helps staff this committee, David Brown, if you'll stand up. David has been with me since before I even came to Congress. He moved to my district. He's been like a son to me, but he's leaving me for greener pastures. And so I want to say thank you for everything that you've done for our team and for this country. Thank you, David.
Freezer dwellers may be of use, but they're already behind the time.
And again, thank you, witnesses today. Thank you for the time that you gave.
Look, they're already asleep. They'll never know if you just pull the plug, right?
Thank you for this thoughtful conversation, and really appreciate it. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna admit, this one was actually pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie. This one was pretty nice. There wasn't a lot of bullshit. There wasn't a lot of arguing. There wasn't a lot going on. There wasn't a lot of trying to piss people off, except for Mr. Min. Why the fuck are you bitching and complaining because they're in a hearing room and not sitting around an actual round table? Shut the fuck up. All right. But I'm just going to say this. Military-wise, we already know our AI is more advanced than what is on the market. The question remains, is our AI more advanced than any other countries? And from what they're saying, China's already dominating that market. AI is going to be a necessary evil. And the first person to actually make a truly capable AI will be the first person to control the world. We're coming up on it very, very quickly. And I don't like it. I don't like it. But yeah, Jenna was talking about something. Jennifer had mentioned it too. Like, I think we need to have like a tech episode and catch up on some things here, because there's a lot in the tech world that I've been slacking on doing all this. And I'd like to catch back up on that, because that's my forte. That's my world. We may do that tomorrow if I'm not feeling 100% or even close to 100%. We may do another hearing. I don't know. But I'll be back tomorrow with some more shit here. It's just going to be fun to see what the world's going to be as soon as AI actually does become a thing. And I'm not talking about sentient or anything like that. I'm talking about when it actually starts to manage shit. The question is, because everybody's lives will be so much easier, so much better, so much, you won't have to do a lot of shit just to maintain that lifestyle that you have. Will you become so dependent on it that it will control? I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be yes, because it's going to be forced on you regardless. Back in the day, nobody said they would have these in their hands, and now everybody can't live without them. AI's coming up, Neuralink, the chip in your brain. They want to put read-write capabilities into that. I'm afraid of where this is going. It could be the next giant leap in evolution for mankind to pretty much become immortal. I mean, you can think about it. Downloading your whole consciousness, whatever makes you you. You can 3D print another flesh and blood body, or you can download it into a fucking robot. We're becoming incredibly dangerous as a species, and it frightens the fuck out of me where we're headed. But I'll be long gone before this all happens. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the shit out of every single one of you. I'm going to throw you over to Jim Tells You for the rest of the night. Y'all go over there, do what you need to do there. Just say hello, make the little flashies and everything happen. And as soon as I get this here. Make the flashies and everything happen. Tell him hello. And of course, we will see you again tomorrow. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have a good night.
And y'all don't know that I'm a soldier. I always felt like I'm alone. When everybody thinks they know ya. And y'all don't even know I own ya. And now I'm ready taking over. Cause every day I'm getting closer. Just look at everything I'll show ya. And now I'm ready, I'ma blow up.